Hey there, how you doing? So, sometimes you need to like get yourself ready to start recording or start a particular job, and you're just trying to kind of boost up your energy. I've just had to get my punk on, like I really had to. I don't know, there's something about these times right now, probably all the Scorpio energy that's going on, and also the fact that in this week ahead, we've got a lot of fire energy. So I've just been listening to Ian Drury and the Blockheads with Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, which has totally taken me back to like growing up in late 70s England. But anyway, I hope you're well and raring to go. So this is a forecast. I'm recording this actually on Halloween, slightly ahead of time because we've got family birthday celebrations this weekend. So this is a forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. Like I said at the end of last week's forecast, this is a bit of a banger. There's lots going on. And in the first part, I'm going to be talking very much about the position of the moon, like which moon phase are we in this week ahead and what that might mean and how you might want to use your energy. And I'm also going to break it down on a day by day basis. That's going to be the day by day forecast. So for instance, when I start that, I'll be talking very much like what to do on Monday, Tuesday, oh my God, Tuesday the 5th, right the way through to Sunday the 10th. And then in the second part, I'll also be talking about the forecast for you as a sign. Now, you can listen to that for your sun sign, your ascendant, your moon sign, however you want to use it. I often, as a rule of thumb, would say, if you're listening to your sign because it's your sun sign, then it's really about your personality and your expression. How expressive are you? How much are you lighting up your life right now? If you're listening to your moon sign, it's very much about your emotional, like your psyche. And if you're listening to your ascendant, that's really about the overall architecture of your life. It's really talking about the different areas of your life that that are affected. So use it in the way that works best for you is my advice. If I was listening, I don't know if I would listen to my sun sign. I would probably listen more to my moon sign and my ascendant, just because I really identify with them so much more. And it's funny that I'm talking about identity and identifying, because I really think we're in a really strong time of identifying with our beliefs, and identity politics are really strong. I've just released the November forecast, the overview, on a week by week basis, really talking about the overall energy and how we can start to come back together again after many years of actually falling apart at the seams, kind of pulling each other down. So I'm kind of hopeful that we will start to almost give up on politics and almost give up on all of the different things that are dividing us right now, and that we'll start coming together. We'll just realize that we're nothing without our brothers and our sisters and our neighbors and our communities. I am hopeful that we'll start doing it for ourselves, but hey, what do I know? I'm just a bit of a libertarian. Yeah. So anyway, let's get cracking. As usual, I always want to start by thanking everyone that sponsors this channel. I love all of your support. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. And especially when I get a little note from somebody, I love that too. So thank you so much for your generosity, your kindness, and yeah, for supporting. And you can also support like these people here have supported me financially, but you might want to just support by sharing your favorite video with people that you think might like to hear a bit of astrology. Any kind of shares and liking as well really helps as well. So I adore anyone that is helping to support this channel, because really this is I think astrology is useless unless it helps us to feel good and helps us to feel a bit more balanced, helps us to see our patterns, where we might be resistant to change, where we might be resistant to resolving something for ourselves. The unconscious mind plays quite a few tricks on us. And, I didn't just study astrology, I've also got a background in NLP, hypnotherapy and timeline therapy and a lot of subliminal stuff. So, I really do like to see the link between you know, what's going on with the planets, but also how we can use it so we're not hurting ourselves, so we can clear as much as we can. So that's really my take on it. So thank you, everyone. Now let's bring on the first slide, which is very much about the week ahead in terms of the moon. Sorry, I just needed to, behind the scenes, get onto the right slide. So yeah, as we're coming into the 4th of November, the lead up to it is pretty phenomenal. And by phenomenal, I actually mean pretty shocking. We've got a lot of really, really strong astrology from really today, Halloween, the 31st of October, but the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th are immense. You know, so if you are like, if you want a little bit of a reminder, that's at the end of last week's forecast. And I do talk about the 1st to the 4th of November in my November update, because they, you know, it's almost like you've got a month's worth of aspects in 4 days. It is shockingly strong. You know, there's all of these aspects between planets, not just the moon and planets, but actual planets. And on the 4th, you know, we've got Leo going into the sign of we've got Mars going into the sign of Leo. So it's such a really, really strong day. So we're starting this week with the moon in Sagittarius, which is a little bit punky, a little bit wanting freedom, wanting a sense of things to be easy, things to be fun, things to be truthful and clear. You know, the Sagittarius energy doesn't want complications. It just wants to be able to gallop off into the distance and be able to go in the direction it wants. As I was saying that, I was thinking of the Fleetwood Mac song, Go Your Own Way. You know, the sign of Sagittarius is absolutely wanting to do its own thing, and doesn't like anything that's kind of nipping at its heels or trying to pin it down. It just wants freedom. So I really get that as we're starting this week, there is a very strong motif of freedom for all of us. Now, this, as we're going into this week, this is after the new moon in Scorpio on the 1st of November. And so we are really in an early growth phase of the moon. We are in a waxing crescent phase, tiny slither of the moon. And it's also about gentleness, which just because of the timing of the American elections, I can't imagine for 1 minute it's going to be gentle and sort of naked and raw and just gently growing. You know, it's very delicate. You know, the new moon energy, you know, after the new moon energy, we've got a delicate growth phase where if you grow too fast, the plant gets leggy and it doesn't have enough support to support itself. And yet, if you don't encourage it enough, if you don't feed it enough, it dries up. You know, it never gets off the ground. And so it's a real delicate balancing act. So as you're going into Monday the 4th, and I recognize, you know, 60% of my viewers, my audience, aren't from America, although I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching what's going on. But yeah, the 4th to the 5th and 6th, really up until the 7th, when the moon goes into the first quarter phase, we are a bit more delicate. We are a little bit more gentle. We need to be slow, but consistently encouraging with ourselves. Now on Tuesday, the moon is going to go into Capricorn. And, you know, when that happens, I think we're going to want to be as practical as possible. You know, I think there is the realization we've done as much as we can. You know, what is, I was going to say what is what's best. People might not think that on Friday, because the way it looks not Friday, on Tuesday, but the way it looks right now, according to different news outlets, is that, you know, a vast swathe of people are going to be unhappy with what happens on Tuesday. And also, similarly, you know, there could be people that are very happy for a whole myriad of reasons. So I think the sort of practical moon aspect is quite helpful as I'm looking at this. So as we get to Thursday, then we get to that first quarter phase, and that's when the sun and the moon relationship together get a bit more dynamic. You know, it is time to step out a little bit more. It is time to do things. So I almost feel like Monday to Wednesday, you know, we're almost waiting to know the next thing to do. It's like we've done as much as we can, and it's like, now what? And then I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're starting to move forwards again. Again, from a completely, there'll be some people that are moving forwards quite gleefully, and some who are going to be moving forwards feeling bereft. And the funny thing is, I suspect that whatever results come out from Tuesday, I am fully expecting there to be swings and roundabouts. I mentioned, I think I called my November forecast smoke and mirrors. I think there's, whatever is announced on Tuesday, I still am a little bit cautious. I don't think that is the end of the answer. I think there's going to be lots of skullduggery and different things going on. So it's an interesting week. And then as we get to it does look like there's an unfair amount of Aquarian time, moon in Aquarius. It's just, when it changes over on Thursday the 7th, it's right at the end of the day. And then when the moon comes into Pisces on Sunday, that's earlier on in the day. And so let's have a look. Let's break this down even further on a day-by-day basis. So on Monday the 4th, we've already had Mercury go into the sign of Sagittarius on the 2nd, which will have made us feel a little bit more strident in our views, but also a little bit long-winded in how we're expressing ourselves, like more interested in the bigger picture. Mercury's not so comfortable in the sign of Sagittarius. We've also got Mars into Leo, so we've got 2 personal planets, plus Venus is already in Sagittarius. I will be talking about that a few slides down, but there is a fieriness about Monday the 4th. We've got the moon in a square to Saturn. We've also got moon in an opposition to Jupiter, which is interesting because that's picking up on the ongoing square between Saturn and Jupiter, which is the discomfort between new ideas and old ideas, measured ideas and blown out of proportion ideas. Back when this first started, I really thought that the Jupiter and Saturn square really represented the 2 political candidates of the time. Both Jupiter and Saturn are a bit like old men. One is more outward facing and stronger and looks a bit more fun, and the other seems a little bit more nitpicky and like rule related. And the funny thing is, both of those can apply to both of those candidates. But to me, it's just really picking up, like the Saturn and the Jupiter are both leaders in their own rights, not necessarily the candidates. Don't want to offend anyone necessarily, but there are different ways of ruling and being in charge, and both Saturn and Jupiter do want to be in charge, but are being in charge in different ways. And so the moon in a square to one and the opposition to another just really shows our discomfort. And I think that could be something that's felt worldwide, whether you like any particular candidate or whether you like any particular idea on war and who's right and who's wrong and budgets and this, that and the other. Really, isn't this the discomfort that we all feel, that our hands are tied and that all of our belongings or our lives are being ruled by 1 or 2 different ideas? That's where I really get the feeling of the pain of the moon on this day, on Monday, is the fact that, why aren't we doing this for ourselves? Why aren't we looking after our own interests? Why does it appear that there are that we have choices that aren't really choices? But we've also got the sun in a trine to Saturn, which is also showing us taking a bit of responsibility and wanting to come back into our body and be kind of strong and firm. The moon's in a trine to Chiron, really showing that we're wanting to heal this. And, maybe the square and the opposition to Jupiter are really showing up our dis-ease with anyone in authority. So we may well be right now, at a time when we're expected to vote or expected to make a hard decision or say what we believe in. Maybe right now it's bringing up a lot of triggering about adults, grandparents, teachers, all the people around us us in our childhoods that may well have had an influence over us, and sometimes may have lauded that energy over us. I really do think that what's going on out there is often, and how we see it is often a response to how we were treated as children. Did we like authority? Did we feel protected by authority when we were growing up? Did we feel ousted or ostracized by authority? All of that makes a really big difference as to how you function in the world. And right now, it just feels really high stakes. So I do think we can start to heal that sort of parent wound or the father wound, given that, authority, and laws seem to be very sort of patriarchal as opposed to, a bit more balanced. We've also got a lovely conjunction with Venus right at the end of the day. So I do think we're being quite grown up. We are strident, we are proud, but underneath it all, we're a little bit edgy and irritated by the situation that we're finding ourselves in right now. So as we go on to Tuesday the 5th, the moon's in a square to Neptune, which I think is really showing up as an oversensitivity and also a feeling of who can we trust right now. Neptune in an uncomfortable position, like a square or an opposition, really, I think, causes us to doubt and to question and to not trust what we're seeing. It's almost like you can't believe it. And when that happens, you might ask yourself, well, why? Is that your intuition kicking in? Is there something going on intuitively? The moon in a square to the North Node, I also see as being a moment where we are like trying to get ourselves back on track. And I think the moon going into Capricorn will be really helpful. So one question you might choose to ask yourself today is, regardless of what happens, how can I feel okay in this moment? Irrespective of what goes on in the world right now, how am I going to maintain my cool, my calm, and feel on track? Because, with this square to Neptune, square to nodes, I think old upsets, do feel a lot more real than usual. And there is this feeling of a disconnection. The moon in Capricorn can assist us because it cools things down. It really cools things down, but we can consequently feel a little bit, disconnected. Wednesday the 6th, then we've got Mercury in a trine to the North Node, Mercury in a sextile to Saturn, the moon in a sextile to the Sun. So I think this is actually quite helpful. Responsibility of communication. I really see that with Mercury in a trine to the North Node. We are absolutely responsible for how we communicate now. And with the moon and the moon in a sextile to the Sun, there is this feeling of us needing to grow up, but probably feeling a bit tired and a little bit maybe overwhelmed. But the Mercury in a trine to the node is how can we be responsible in our communication? The moon, Saturn and Sun, when they're in some kind of configuration, I always think, I mentioned this on my new moon video, and I think they represent the child, the adult, and the parent. In terms of how we're, like which of our personalities, which of our filters are we going through life. So this is actually showing that we can be all three. We can listen to our childlike self, we can be in our adult self, and we can also be in our parental or responsible self. So Wednesday, I think, keeping on with the moon in Capricorn theme, I think this is a day for us to be really responsible in how we're communicating, check things out a few times before you send things off. And if you get like a little inkling that something doesn't feel right, for God's sake, don't send that text or that message. These are sensitive times right now, and people are really identified with the decisions they're making. Thursday the 7th, then, we've got a square to Chiron from the moon. We've got the moon in a trine to Uranus, which is interesting. The moon in a sextile to Neptune, the moon in a conjunction to Pluto. So these are all, you've got like the three outer planets, Pluto, Neptune and Uranus, and the moon is making aspects to all three of them. So it feels like there are outside influences. This isn't just about what's going on inside your body. It's almost like other things from far away are coming in and affecting your psyche. And then this square to Chiron is showing the kind of upsets, the insecurities and the vulnerabilities that might be bringing up. And then the moon going into Aquarius is also very kind of spacey. I don't know if you know anyone with the moon in Aquarius, or whether you are somebody with the moon in Aquarius. I know a few people with the moon in Aquarius, and in particular one of my sons, and they are quite detached, not unloving, not at all. They're deeply loving, and they're also very, very unattached. And so, I see that we are coming into this moment where we can still access things, but we almost have a detached view of things. And so these, like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto on Thursday, especially as we're coming into this first quarter phase, are really showing this kind of outer body experience. So yeah, I mean, these are my keywords, like outside influences, who's in your head, and outer body experience. So I think be very careful who you've got in your head, and how can you clear your head and just inhabit it yourself would be a really great way of coming back into your body, like coming back to you. It's very difficult sometimes to really get clear about why we think the things we think. Often we think it's because it matches our values and this, that, and the other. But in my training of hypnotherapy and NLP, I can really see that, we pick up influences from everywhere all day long, every day. It's almost impossible not to. So I really think that Thursday is a good day to have a real kind of clear out of who you're listening to. If they don't feel right for you, and if they're taking up too much of your precious soul energy. So we go on to Friday the 8th then, and then we've got an opposition to Mars from the moon. The moon's in a conjunction with the moon is not in a conjunction with sex. The moon is in a sextile to the North Node, and the moon is also in a sextile to Mercury. This is, I think, the remedy for the day before. I do think we're back in our body. The moon is very much connected to Mars and Mercury. So that's the things we're saying, the things we're thinking, and also how we are in our body. And, in the sextile to the North Node, it feels like we're back on track. So I see this as a day to potter around, potter around your home, potter around your neighborhood, get on with all the things that you need to do. And then we're coming to the weekend. So the moon in a square to the sun, we've got a trine to Jupiter, sextile to Chiron. We've also got a square to Uranus. And then this is, I think, the big aspect of next week, which is the Venus in a square to Neptune. I'll be talking about this in a couple of slides' time in much greater depth. But I see this as being really, really, really strong. This is the only... I think, this is, we do have Mercury trine the nodes. This is, one of a couple of planet to planet aspects. And this is a big one, Venus square Neptune. It's on really for a whole week, just a little bit more than a week, but it's exact on Saturday the 9th. So I think some of the themes of this are like confusion and deception and illusion. Venus is about how we're relating to people. So, are your relationships real? There is possibly a feeling of who can I relate to and trust, almost as if the people we're relating to, we're slightly out of kilter with, Now the moon in a trine with Jupiter is interesting, because we are wanting to connect and we are wanting to move through our feelings quite quickly. The sextile to Chiron is we're learning quite a lot of things and reviewing quite a lot of things, and that can be quite healing. But the moon in a square to the sun and also in a square to Uranus, that's kind of shocking. It almost feels like there's some shocking realizations, which I must say may be true, but may also not be true, because we've also got this Venus square Neptune going on. So I really think that we get this feeling that we've got a strong intel about somebody or something, and yet we still don't really know. So it is very, very confusing. That's why I've said, illusion in relationships and who can you trust? And then as we're going into the last day, I really think it's a time to rest up. the moon in a sextile to Venus is nourishing and helpful. The moon in a square to Mercury is probably saying, you know, there's a lot we want to say, and maybe we need to rest a little bit before we do say it. But the moon into Pisces is sleepy time. It's time for us to just be gentle with ourselves. So, you know, if you could like book for a quiet weekend on Saturday the 9th and 10th, that could be really, really useful. It's an interesting week. You know, there's a lot where it feels like we're not in our body, you know, that there's a spaciness almost like, yeah, and I don't know if it's because there's shocks going on next week. I'm pretty sure there will be shocks, given that it appears that people are so polarized about the upcoming elections and also all of the other situations going on in the world. You know, and there's so many of them, I couldn't even list them. But, you know, like just from connecting into fellow Brits back in England, you know, I understand that a lot of them are feeling really gutted right now and really fed up about the budget that's just been released. So it just feels like there's a lot of discontent at the moment. So yeah, there's a couple of things I really do want to point out and will become part of the overall forecast, you know, on the sign by sign forecast. And that is the return of fire, you know, the search for truth, but also the search for immediacy, for warmth, for spirit, for feeling courage. You know, as we go into this week, you know, Mercury enters into Sagittarius on the 2nd of November. So, you know, as we're going into this week, like Mercury has already gone into the sign of Sagittarius. And then we've got Mars entering Leo on the 4th of November. So, yeah, we've got Mars over here. But what that means is we've got 3 personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So the personal planets, just to run through, are the Sun and the Moon. And then we've got Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And these 3, you know, Venus is our relationships, Mars is our body, and Mercury is, you know, the conduit, I guess. It's the communication. So these 3, you could say they're like heart, body, and mind, body, spirit. You know, they are like 3 different aspects of being the person, the identity that we are. The Sun and the Moon obviously also give that. Funnily enough, the Sun and the Moon aren't actually planets, they're satellites, you know, from the model that we've got. But yeah, the 3 personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are all in fire signs. We've got Leo and we've got 2 in Sagittarius. But there's actually 4 planets in fire, because we've got Chiron, which has been a long-term visitor in the sign of Aries. It's still going to be in Aries, I think, until 2026. So, you know, this is a long-term visitor. And, you know, when it first went into Aries, I remember doing a blog piece about how I felt like we were coming into a time where our personal identities were going to be the thing that shake us and wake us up, but also the thing that causes us the most pain. You know, our identification with our identities is the thing that has split so many people up right now. You know, the sign of Aries is so strident, you know, so absolutely wanting to do things your own way and wanting to personalize things, you know, really be in your own direction. And so Chiron here has absolutely brought out hurts in a very strong way. So we've got Chiron, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And then we've also got the North Node, which is still in the sign of Aries. It's going to be in the sign of Aries until the end of January. And I think a lot of Aries and Librans are going to breathe a sigh of relief when it moves into Pisces and the South Node moves into Virgo. So we've got a lot of stuff in fire. And, you know, on astro.com, when you look at a chart like this, it's also got this little legend just underneath in the bottom right hand corner, and it shows you the breakdown of the elements. Are we really fiery? Are we airy? Are we earthy? Are we water? And you'll see that fire is stealing the show here. And then you've also got the sort of quality of the sign. Is it cardinal, fixed, or mutable? So the mutability is really, really strong. And the fire, which absolutely resonates with the Sagittarian energy. But yeah, there's a lot of fire. So there's a desire for truth and growth and vitality. And if you think of fire, it, you know, in some ceremonies and religions, you know, fire is used as a sign of purity to burn away any you know, anything that is not pure, you know, like the idea of that. It's also burning brightly. It's lighting things up. It's warming things up. It's heating things up from the darkness. And if we think about, you know, elementally where we've come from, we've had a lot in the water signs, you know, like Mars in Cancer, and also the personal planets going through the sign of Scorpio. So, and obviously we've got Saturn and Neptune long-term visitors in Pisces. So we are really wanting to warm things up and take things out of the emotional, but kind of get back into our bodies, you know, like get those emotions moving and doing something. You know, too much water, I think, especially if it's got nowhere to go in your chart. I think of like a stagnant pond, you know, it's just collecting water and the water's not able to move. It can get quite muddy and it can get like stagnant. It doesn't know how to shift itself. So this fire energy, I think, is really here to burn up some of the grot that, you know, might be the sediment in the water. You know, it's and obviously fire and water actually cancel each other out or turn into steam. But, you know, the idea here is that we're warming things up. We're coming back to life. You know, we're not freezing cold. And, you know, when I think of the freezing cold in the water, I'm thinking of Sedna, which, you know, you might know about the story of Sedna. Sedna is a character I sometimes put into astrology, but, you know, the frigidity of water when you can't move in it, you know, is quite shocking. It's like an emotional stagnation. So I do think in this week ahead, our emotions are moving again. And that's really important. You know, later on this month, Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 25th until the 15th of December. And that's going to be through the sign of Sagittarius. And in December, Mars is going to be going retrograde until February. You know, he's going retrograde from his fire sign Leo into the sign of Cancer. So, you know, whatever we're being strident and proud about and whatever we're lighting up, we are still going to be doing a check later on, you know, like, so when those energies go retrograde, you know, we are going to be questioning, you know, our actions in terms of the Mars retrograde, and we are going to be questioning what's been going on in our communications and our thoughts when Mercury goes retrograde. So don't worry that, you know, this kind of firing up is going to go unchecked. We are going to have checks and balances on these coming up real soon. And so the last thing, before I go on to the forecasts for the week ahead, you know, like the sign by sign forecast, I just want to talk about the Venus-Neptune square. You know, so, you know, Neptune is known as being the higher harmonic of Venus. You know, so if Venus is the terrestrial love and affection that we have for each other and the actual real relationship between people, the real generosity, the real flow, the real sort of heart-centeredness, the sort of cuddle, you know, then Neptune is the etheric, the unconditional love, or the idea of unconditional love. You know, as much as, you know, I'm a mum of 3 and I've thought long and hard many times, I probably don't need to ever think about this thought again, but I've often wondered, you know, what is the most unconditional loving thing a human can do? Is it possible to love unconditionally as a human? I'd like to think so, but in truth, as a mum, you know, as much as, you know, I think we could be unconditional in a moment, you know, and you hear of these people that do something in an act of bravery to save a vulnerable person or a vulnerable animal or you know, a perilous situation. We come out of our ego and we do something absolutely unconditionally heroic and loving. But on a day-by-day basis, are we ever able to fully do something that is unconditionally loving? You know, I know lots of us go above and beyond, and is that coming from unconditional love, or is it coming from sacrifice, or is it coming from, you know, a different egoic factor? I really don't know. But here in the square, you know, we're really questioning love. We're really, you know, and I always think whenever we're questioning love, and also I've admitted that I sometimes ask, am I unconditionally loving? You know, to me, that's an indication that we're not loving ourselves properly. because if we were loving ourselves properly, we probably wouldn't put ourselves through those narratives or those questions. We'd just realize that who we are right now is enough. We are enough just being ourselves. And that would be a truly loving thought. If we could love everyone else like that, you are enough being yourself. It's okay to be yourself. Maybe that is the loving thought. Who knows? But I'm sure I'm going to get some comments about that, some negative ones about that, but never mind. Like we've got the terrestrial love and we've got this idealistic love. Neptune is very, very idealistic. So you might also ask, how are your ideals about how other people should be getting in the way of real connection and real relationships with the people in your lives? I think this is going to be the thing that really comes up. This is exact on, was it the 9th? Exact on the 9th, but it really has already started as we start this week, and it's really only just coming out of that square, I think, on the 17th of November. So it is super strong. And I think it'd be helpful to ask yourself things. If you're feeling disconnected from your neighbors, from your family, from your communities, ask yourself, how are my ideals getting in the way? How are my ideals of how everyone else should be? And what everyone else should feel, and how everyone else should be, have the same ideals as me. Is that actually true? And is that Caroline Mace or Miss that I'm using her questions? No, I can't remember. Tell me in the off the top of my head, I can't remember. But like, ask yourself these questions. Is it true? Is it really true? What would you be without that thought? Like, if you've got this thought, everyone, idealistically, everyone should feel like this, feel in the same way as me. Well, is this true? Is it really true? And how would you be if you could let go of that thought? What might change if you could let that thought go? I think that, these ways of thinking about this, for a long time, I think we've been trapped in these kind of mind viruses of what is right and what is wrong, very moralistically. We've been sold ideas through news and media, and then through manipulation within our communities. People have taken these ideas and run with it and kind of bullied each other with it. We all know people that have bullied others on social media and in communities because their ideals aren't being met by everybody else. And this to me is saying, where are you feeling othered? Where are other people kind of othering you, saying, oh, you're different, and like pointing the finger? And where are you othering others? Because I think we're all at it in some way, shape or form. So I think like the emotional disillusionment of not knowing who to trust is really real. And actually, what we probably need to do is just trust ourselves. And you might think, whilst you might be othering other people, you might not be. Hopefully you're not. And maybe it's just me here that holds up my hand and says, yes, sometimes I do other others. And then I notice I'm doing it and I think, okay, well, what was that achieving? But are we really emotionally trusting ourselves when we're questioning the behaviors of others? Because if we really emotionally trusted ourselves, we would somehow know that we could always get the job done, or we could always sort things out. We could always make things work. If we really trusted ourselves completely, we would have this kind of reassurance that everything would be okay. And yeah, some terrible things do happen, but mostly in life, things are actually quite good, and we could probably cope with it. What I really get is, why were people in the pandemic ratting each other out by not meeting each other's ideals? I think was coming from a place of vulnerability, that people felt vulnerable. People felt like their bodies were going to be attacked by other people if they didn't comply with what they wanted. And I think there is this sort of hangover of this time still going on. So really, I see this Venus-Neptune square as representing, are you deeply trusting yourself to survive? Are you deeply trusting yourself to be able to get things done? Do you really love yourself and know that you can make it work for yourself. So much so that it doesn't matter what other people are doing. And I wonder how the world would change quickly if everybody was loving themselves, coming back into their own emotional power, serving themselves kindly, and then seeing what energies happen between people. Like, would we all start to respect each other a bit more? Because I do think, you know, when you love yourself a bit more in a kind and compassionate way, other people start to do that as well. You know, we tend to look on people kindly. The people we like the most tend to be the people that we think have a higher level of self-love or a higher level of compassion and kindness. And where people are really doubty and feeling vulnerable and a bit spiky, we do tend to have problems with people around there because we always think that they're trying to put some manipulation on us. So these are really interesting times. And this Venus-Neptune square is really emphasizing that. You know, and the real takeaway from this is that both Venus and Neptune are octaves of love. And I think situations transform lovingly. They don't really transform because of brute force. They transform because we take the time to be patient with ourselves and with other people. So they're my thoughts. Oh yeah, I put the dates up there. It goes on from the 3rd of November to the 17th of November, and it's exact on the 9th. So it's with us for a while. It's worth coming to terms with it, and just like, you know, if you do have a kind of grumpy thought about somebody, just ask yourself, where am I othering them, and why why are they seeming so kind of abhorrent to me right now? What is it about myself that I'm not able to access or understand? You know, we are really in times of smoke and mirrors, projection, screens, everything. You know, I really think the people coming into your life are showing you what you can't see about yourself, or showing you something that has hurt you in the past that you haven't yet been able to solve. That's why I think we need so much compassion for people right now. Anyway, it sounds a bit like I'm on a soapbox, so I'm going to get off it. So in a sec, I'm going to do the forecast. And actually what I'm really looking at is this, the return of truth and the fire energies, and how they're going to pep you up. How are those fire energies working with you in this week ahead? And also about the Venus square Neptune energies and how these are showing up for you, you know. So I will come back in a second and start those forecasts. Thanks for joining me so far. Hey there, Aries. So this is the forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November, 2024. Now, if you're wanting to connect in with the day by day forecast, then check that out in the earlier part of the video, where I literally look at all of the moon and planetary placements on each day and give specific advice as to what you'd like to do, or what you might find useful. In this short forecast, what I'm going to be concentrating on is interpreting the fire energies that are really coming on strong in this week. It really does feel like there's a return of fire. There's a return of sacred truth, the energy of warming things up, lighting things up, shining the light on things, burning out things that don't seem to be creating movement. To me, this feels like very much a time of sacred purity. So I do see this as a sort of purification week ahead. And I'm also going to be talking about the Venus square Neptune that's going on at 27 degrees of both Sagittarius and also Neptune. And I will pay a little bit of lip service to your ruling planet, which is Mars at 29 degrees in the sign of Cancer. So let's get going. In terms of this week ahead, and I don't know if you're looking at this from the perspective of that you have your sun in Aries, your moon in Aries, or your ascendant in Aries. But all week, the moon phase is in a waxing crescent, literally from the 4th right the way up until around Thursday the 7th, or when we're going into the first quarter phase. What this is, and that's on Thursday. So what this is really meaning is between Monday and Thursday, I really see that things are in a delicate balance. You know, any feeling of a new start is delicate and without strength, without support, without nourishment, and without structure, each of these delicate new starts could, maybe not make it there, a bit too delicate. But from Thursday the 7th, things are going at quite a great stride, and it feels like it is time to start birthing your new reality. Now, that's obviously quite a strong time. I mean, obviously, this is the week ahead of the American elections. And also, there's a lot of different stuff going on in the world, outside of America as well, loads of different decision making going on. But from Thursday the 7th, it does feel right the way until the Sunday the 10th that there are some opportunities to move forwards and get back into a new normal. Now, what that new normal looks like, who knows? But let's explore how the fire energies are adding to this, and also the Venus square Neptune and the effect of that. Now, earlier in this show, in a section called Venus square Neptune, I'm talking about the sort of cumulative energies of Venus and Neptune in their square. They start to go into the square the day before this week starts, and they're still in this square beyond this week. They're in this square until the 17th of November. However, they are exactly in this square on Saturday the 9th. Now, this is a really strong acting square. Both Venus and Neptune are they are auguries of love. They are both there to represent love, the earthly love, the very real physical love, and the generosity, the flow, and the creativity that comes with Venus. And then we've got this very etheric, creative, spiritual, and idealistic kind of love, this sort of unconditional love energy, and the tension between the two. Can we believe with our eyes and with our physical senses? Venus is a very sensuous planet, where we're experiencing sensations and feelings. Can we trust our sensations? Can we trust our feelings in our body right now? And how do we relate to people when we have very idealistic ideas about how our friends and family should be? So there is a little bit of tension here. And, I feel that in this week ahead, it just feels ever so slightly suspicious, as if people are looking at their fellow neighbor, family member, partner, colleague at work. We're not sure who to trust, and I would ask you, how far are your ideals as to how people should be playing into these kinds of decisions right now? So it does feel a little bit tense. And it does feel like, are you in some kind of spell? Are you, have you just woken up from something with a realization, and now you're looking around thinking, was I deluded? What's going on? This just, to me, I think feels very much like people aren't trusting themselves and going into a place of doubt. What I absolutely recognize at this moment in time for you, Aries, is, you have this direct experience of wanting to understand more of the world, with Mercury here in the sign of Sagittarius, and also Venus here in the sign of Sagittarius. There's this real need to have sensations of being out in the world, and to be able to ride off into the sunset, and to have the freedom and space to make your own decisions, and the freedom and space to have your own belief systems. The ninth house is absolutely about your political views, but it's more than that. It's about your spiritual views, your philosophical views, your ability to understand a much greater context of life is really being tweaked at the moment. So, you may well find that if you've never been particularly political or philosophical or spiritual or religious, or, any of those higher context kind of subjects, that this is playing a lot more into your mind than usual. So, this is opening you up to a whole new series of ideas. This area is also about learning. And I think, it's the natural space of Sagittarius, the ninth house. The Sagittarian energy loves the ninth house, because it is also about truth and understanding truth, and and understanding freedom, and how understanding that when you're in a lie, you're not very free. You know, it doesn't feel very liberating when you're having to hold a lie or having to hold something in. And so here, my advice to you is to really examine your own thoughts and feelings. You know, so you might be doubtful or feeling insecure around other people and wondering what they really feel like. Can you trust them? You know, what they say, you know, are they telling the truth about their thoughts and feelings right now? And yet what you might choose to ask yourself is, are you being honest with yourself? Have you changed? If so, how have you changed? How can you be more loving towards yourself and your evolving picture right now? How can you love yourself back into a sense of certainty rather than having a sense of doubt? So, you know, this is, I think, asking you to hang in there. And every time doubt is coming up about other people, really flip it inwardly and ask, where am I doubting myself right now? Because there is, you know, most likely some very strong mirroring going on. Now, what makes it slightly worse is that Neptune in the 12th, and it's been here a long time for you, is deeply, deeply intuitive, but really stressed out right now. So your usual intuitions that you might trust and rely on aren't maybe so active, you know, because to me, it feels like there's so much to lose, or it feels like there's so much to lose, that it feels personalized. And so it's very difficult to separate yourself from the fear of your intuitions not turning out as you're hoping, versus the joy of having intuitions and just trusting in them. So you could turn this inward, and I absolutely advise that you don't do that. I really don't. This will work its way out. You will come back into trust with people and trust in yourself. And the sooner you can do it, the sooner you'll be feeling really, really great. Now, I want to talk also about the fire energy, because obviously your Aries is very strong. And, you know, we've got the North Node here in the sign of Aries. We've also got Chiron in the sign of Aries. They've both been here for quite some time. Chiron in particular, since at least, I think, is it 2017, 2018? It's been here a long time. And both of these are bringing up a lot of anxieties and stresses about your identity. And I think, given that, Mercury and Venus are also in the 9th house, really seeking truth, I think there's this real need to feel like you can truly be yourself, that you're safe to truly be yourself. And I know it seems funny saying that to an Aries, because Aries are quite a strident sign who are quite straightforward, and you usually know who an Aries is, because they're usually quite straightforward about it. But you may have actually been hurt about your identity. You know, Chiron coming through here is showing that, you know, maybe there's been times when you haven't been accepted for being who you are. And, you know, so I do think there is this journey of self-acceptance going on, and also the fight to be truthful to yourself. So I think this week is likely to bring up a strident side of you of rapid self-acceptance and the rapid recognition of where you haven't allowed yourself to be yourself. So I see this week as warming up everything that is true about you, everything that feels absolutely veritable, you know, like it's absolutely the truth. You know, it's the truth. You have no doubts about yourself. And then from that comes this sense of great freedom. Now, adding into this, we should also talk about Mars, which is another planet that on the 4th, literally on the first day of this week ahead, Mars is, he starts in Cancer, but literally on the 4th is going into Leo. And by the end of the week, he's at 2 degrees in the sign of Leo. So, you know, Mars in Leo is proud and creating a sense of courageousness in accepting your creative gifts. It's interesting, you know, that Mars is in the 5th house. The 5th house is about intimacy. It's about rising up in your joy, celebrating your joy, celebrating what makes you a bit different. I absolutely think the 5th can show us how different we are sometimes, but it really shows us our passion to be alive. And so, you know, Mars working here is also encouraging you to make peace with your identity, make peace with that part of you that maybe you felt you needed to keep a bit quiet. It's letting you know that you're okay. Mars working with Mercury here is allowing you to step into your voice a lot more, especially talking about freedom from constriction, freedom from censorship, freedom from, not being good enough or feeling the judgments of other people. This is all, I think, working to free you up so that you feel lit up, and also that you feel you're purifying everything about you. So I really love this. Now, in terms of this waxing crescent moon, it's starting from a place of truth, which I love, which I think is really useful. And then it's going into the 10th and then into the 11th before settling in the 12th, right at the end of the week. To me, as this week gets stronger, you're realizing that your true identity, the who you really are, who you don't need to be afraid of revealing now, and who you feel quite courageous enough to be open and start talking, and how that's liberating for you. That's having a knock-on effect in your career. Now, I would say that until Thursday the 7th, you might find, as the moon kind of goes into a bit of an opposition with Mars, that your truth could actually bring up a bit of defensiveness from other people. The moon will go over Pluto over this time, but really from the 7th, later on in the day, after the moon has gone into the sign of Aquarius, I really feel that the social aspects of your career and your networks and your ability to work with other people will be the thing that strengthens this whole period. So given that this we're coming into this after the recent new moon in Scorpio, I really think that if your projects are about getting clearer about yourself, feeling a lot more worthy, that as this is ending, as we're coming into the first quarter, the action that you might choose to take is how you can work with a greater amount of people and from a greater level of truth in yourself. So there you go, Aries. I hope this is helpful for you in the week ahead from the 4th to the 10th. If I can be of any help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description box. But have a great week ahead, and whatever is going on in the crazy old world, may you feel peace and protection, and hopefully feel that all is well with you. So lots and lots of love to you, and catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Taurus. So this is the forecast taking you from Monday the 4th of November all right the way through to Sunday the 10th of November, and this is going to be quite an interesting week because obviously there's lots going on in the world. Now, I don't know if you're watching this from the perspective of your sun in Taurus, your moon in Taurus, or your ascendant in Taurus, but in this short video, I'm exploring a couple of overriding patterns, that are going on throughout the whole week. If you are looking for a more day-to-day forecast, then I do recommend that you look earlier in this video to the day-to-day forecast. It's clearly labeled, where I break down the energies of where the moon and planets are on a day-by-day basis, and give you some advice as to how you might want to choose to use that energy. Now, with this forecast, I'm really wanting to examine a couple of the big things that I noticed, the big patterns. And one of them is this ongoing square between Venus and Neptune. It actually starts on the 3rd of November and lasts right the way through to the 17th of November. But it's exact on the 9th, which is Saturday, the 9th of November. And so, it's pretty strong this week. This is the strongest time of it. Venus is your ruling planet. So that makes it all the more important that we understand how this square is likely to show up. Both Venus and Neptune are harmonics or octaves of love. Venus is very much about love and flow and connection, generosity, and very much the physical body in terms of the sensations, the feelings that we're having. She's sensual, and deeply loving and wanting to connect. Then Neptune is a higher octave of love. You could say unconditional love, the sort of levels of really sort of amazing, incredible creativity and spirituality. Neptune is also showing us illusions. It's a bit of a conjurer. It shows us what we might want to see, but not necessarily something that is steeped in actual earthly truth. The earthly side of the love and creativity is with Venus, and the spiritual side of it, the higher level of it and the veiled level of it is with Neptune. Now, in these squares, that creates some tension, that creates some tension in how are we relating to others, quite distinctively. And I think, one of the questions you might choose to ask yourself is, how am I loving myself? Am I loving myself right now? Am I being loving towards me? Because, Venus here, especially in this part of your chart, which is absolutely known for being a bit insecure, where it currently is, it brings up the feeling of expectations others put on you, shame, blame, guilt. Guilt is a big one, and Neptune is a real guilt junkie. So I do imagine that in this week you may be having difficulties relating to others based on a level of guilt. Now, is this a guilt that maybe you don't reach the idealism, like the idealistic ideas that other people are expecting of you? Or are you feeling guilty because you don't quite agree with the people around you and you don't quite know how to say it? This kind of square, I think, shows where ideals are getting in the way of actual true connection. So you might find some of the ideals that you have for the partners and friends in your life are not being met. Like you're wanting to see your holy friend, like your friend being, somebody who is high-minded and brilliant and articulate and this, that, and the other. And you might not be seeing that in them and feeling quite disillusioned by them. So it's showing where we're not quite connecting with people. You might also ask yourself, where are you othering and where do you feel othered by the people, where people are pointing a finger and saying, oh, you're not like me, you're like them, that kind of energy, because that naturally does take place. And of course, with Venus and Neptune, there's an element of guilt with that, like, sorry, I don't match up to your expectations. But ultimately, these squares are here to show us what we need to transform, and we are transforming love. We are transforming love by realizing that we are earthly beings expecting people to be sort of unconditionally loving and to have unconditional high regard. Now, that's probably really difficult for your partners and also for you to maintain in your life. So I really think part of this is how can you love yourself better and accept yourself and accept the people around you as humans, so I really think that's coming on. And especially with this placement here in the 8th, that is really bringing up elements of judgment and possibly a feeling of disappointment when things aren't quite going as you'd expect. The next thing that I really want to point out is the fact that we've got all three of the actual personal planets. Obviously, the sun and the moon are satellites, but they are the luminaries, I guess. One is lighting us up during the day, and the other is lighting us at night. But these planets, we've got Venus here, we've got Mercury, and we've got Mars. All three of them in fire signs. Now, Mercury went into the sign of Sagittarius on the 2nd. Mars is actually doing it on the 4th, the day this week starts. And Venus is already in this and will be changing signs next week. But right now, our personal energies are being transformed through fire and the energy of fire. So we're talking about truth, growth, vitality. I also think it's a bit of a purification time, like how can we burn brightly? How can we burn off the residues? Now, where have we come from? We've come from water signs. All of these would have been in water signs previously. And I'm really getting this sense of stagnation. I know water flows, but, recently, especially in the sign of Scorpio, and especially with, Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces, I think, and how long term they've been. I just think, the emotions may well have been stifled and also stagnant. So this fire energy right now is really lighting things up, burning it, and burning off the residues so that we can feel lighter, we can feel more exultant. Now, given that Mercury and Venus is showing up in your 8th house, this could be a time when you do a ritual for yourself. You might just light a candle, you might light incense, you might make some intentions, but really focus on how to feel clear, how to feel, I don't say unburdened. It's such a, because it's had so many, like comments because of, Kamala's, unburdened by what has been. But, the feeling of being unburdened right now, I think is really important. I'm sorry, I'm just nervous about saying anything, that indicates one side or another. I'm really trying to be sort of impartial and not wanting to pick up on anyone's language more than anyone else's. But, the whole idea that you could maybe, express yourself in a way and feel the burning energy, and the brightness and the warmth and the clarity that comes, when you see a flame. That's why so many humans love looking at fires, and kind of get this sense of closure that you're bringing the light back, like dark to light. The 8th house is a house that is very, very secretive. So again, it feels like you're shining the light on the secrets. And so you might be discovering a lot of secrets this week that could be a bit shocking, but also could be very useful. Mars coming in here in your 4th house is absolutely going to give you a lot more pride and a lot more energy at home to get things clear and to take ownership and to really feel that energy of warmth and action at home. And of course, we've also still got the North Node and Chiron here in the sign of Aries. And this has been really working on your unconscious mind for quite some time. It's really picked up on where you felt vulnerable, and insecure. And right now, if you were to be able to name your key insecurities, like maybe not being good enough, I don't know. I mean, there's a whole heap of, traditional insecurities that most of us have got, like some kind of internal little bug in our programming. But, whatever you can get clear about, whatever you can clearly articulate, I think Mercury, Mars, and Venus can all be working on your behalf to bring light to the situation from your home. And from your level of stability, and also from bringing everything out into the light, like not letting it stay in your unconscious mind. The 8th and the 12th are notoriously secretive places. This is actively secret. This is just unconscious. So I really think you've got the ability to bring out the pain and the vulnerability, to see it in the light of day, and then to kind of bless it and allow it to move on. The North Node is going to be in this sign, until the end of January before passing out. And so he's still doing the North Node, sorry, not he, but the North Node is still doing work in your unconscious mind. This is a time where you're letting go of old belief systems and preparing for new ones. Ultimately, with your ruling planet in the 8th house, this is absolutely showing you with kindness and love where you're holding old rackets against yourself, where you're holding yourself to these impossible expectations that other people have had on you or over you. As this moon moves from Sagittarius on the 4th right the way through to Pisces on the 10th of November, you're going through a process of freeing yourself up, in particular up until the 7th, as we're going into the first quarter phase. What I really think is from Monday to Thursday, if you could concentrate on how you can feel free, every emotion that you have, ask yourself, how can I experience more freedom in this moment? How can I experience a feeling of liberty in this moment? How can I free myself from my own dogma? How can I set myself free from other people's expectations? Keep asking yourself those questions, because these new starts in the waxing crescent moon phase are delicate. So you absolutely need to be asking yourself kindly, gently, but with some authority. Then from the 7th, as the moon is going into the sign of Aquarius, and it actually reaches that first quarter phase. It's time to take some actual action. So I do think towards the end of the week, you're a lot more active. In particular, you might see some application of how you can burn your brightness and bring your lightness into your career and then also into your networks. So I think this is a really important week ahead for you, Taurus. You know, no matter what is going on in the world, and I do think it's going to get a bit crazy. I really do. I'm not kidding you about that. And, you know, I've sort of recorded something about November forecast for the whole month ahead and also the new moon as well. So check those out as well, because they'll give you a much bigger sense of this. But in terms of this week ahead, this is a really strong week. And the fire energies, the waking you up, the motivating you, the feeling of movement after a period of stagnancy is deeply useful. So there you go, Taurus. I hope that's helpful for you. If I can be of any help to you at all, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the video description. And like I said, I'm really, really happy to help where I can. Lots of love to you. Bye for now. Hey there, Gemini. So this is the forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November, 2024. This is a big week for news around the world, I'm sure, and a time when people are slightly on edge for all sorts of different reasons. Now, if you're wanting a day-by-day forecast, then check out the day-to-day forecast chapter earlier on in this show, because in that chapter, I'm looking at the moon aspects to every planet as it goes on its journey. I'm really talking about the daily activities and feelings that might be going on. In this part of the forecast, I'm really talking to the specific Gemini energy. So it might be your ascendant, it might be your sun, it might be your moon. But I'm really wanting to talk more about the overarching patterns of the week ahead. And as I see it, it's the waxing crescent moon from Sagittarius to Pisces, which I'll be talking about, like literally a couple of days after the new moon. So we're sort of definitely in that sort of new start energy, which is always good. And then we've got the fire energies that are really, really strong. So we've got Mercury, your ruling planet, and also Venus, and also Mars, all in fire signs. You know, so Venus is your feelings and your way that you are relating to other people. It's about love and generosity and kindness and flow. Mercury is very much about your communications and your thoughts and interactions. It's very social. And then Mars is very much about our vitality and how do we stand strong? How do we communicate our vitality? How do we feel, how do we feel alive, I think. You know, so in these fiery signs, there is this sense of movement at a personal level. Of course, we've also got the North Node in Aries. It's been there for about 16, 17 months now. It's got 16 months. It's got a couple of months more. At the end of January, it will go into the sign of Pisces. So we're still working through something. And also Chiron has been in this part of your chart for ages, since I think 2017, 2018, when it fully ingressed. And so that is also, these two are also in the fire sign. So there's definitely a fiery theme. Now, on the theme of fire, you know, what that's speaking to me about, especially seeing as two of these personal planets are in the sign of Sagittarius, is the need for truth and growth and vitality. You know, this feeling of expansion, this feeling of things needing to change. So I'm getting this sense of movement, fiery movement, expansive movement, excitable movement, definite movement. I also think fire as a symbol is used to purify things. You know, fire burns brightly, it burns off, it warms up, it lights up. And, you know, we've been in these stagnant waters of Scorpio, no offense to any Scorpios out there. But, you know, fixed water is stagnant, you know, and your emotions get kind of churned around and they don't go anywhere. So I really think this dark to light motif, you know, from the dark and the secrets of Scorpio, we are coming into a time of great movement and warmth And from a Gemini perspective, I think that's kind of helpful, actually. Interesting now, isn't it, that, your ruler, Mercury, is in the sign of Sagittarius, and Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in your sign. They are in what's known as mutual reception. Later on this, at the end of this month, Mercury is going to go retrograde, and in December, they're both going to be retrograde in opposition, which is going to be quite wild. I have no idea how that's going to go. I need to give that a bit of thought. But yes, there's going to be some interesting times, balancing out the polarity here between the idea of facts and getting clear and communicating in these kind of short factual ways. And the fact that everyone around you right now seems to be in context, so whereas you're favoring, this news article said this and this said this, and, this is factually fact check, blah, blah, blah. And everyone else seems to be completely in a different place where they're coming up with these wild philosophies and wild ideas and very strident with it, because the fire energy is emphasized. So, is this a sign that, because I do think the 7th house is where we're really projecting, what we're noticing about other people is what we're needing. Are you needing to extend and expand your story somehow? Are you meant to stop looking at the facts so much and come into a place of, understanding how it all fits together, the context of it, so I think actually you might be coming into, a time where it's more important to have longer conversations with people, especially the people that you like to have around. Longer conversations where you're not just going from one subject to another, but really deep diving and including as much information and storytelling as possible. To me, this feels like a time of deep levels of friendship, even at a time when politically and religiously and in all different types of ways, it would appear that people are trying to pull us apart. Actually, there is this motif to pull you together with the people around you. And Venus being here is also very, very helpful. Mars also in your area of community and peer groups and meetups and things like that is also emphasizing that this is a time of coming into sociability so much more. And the North Node and Chiron are really showing that any pains and vulnerabilities that you've had because of your networks, maybe you felt a bit controlled by your networks. Maybe you felt a bit controlled by particular friendship groups. Now you're coming into a time of discussion. And because of that things can move. So I do think things are coming out of this place of secrecy and you're able to have much more open conversations, deeper conversations that will really add to your life and add to your shared experience with your friends and partners. And I think that's important. Now, Venus in a square to Neptune is interesting because both are harmonics of love and creativity. Venus is very much the earthly love. Venus is showing us right now how we can connect with our friends, maybe physically connect with our friends and love our friends just the way they are. Venus is quite helpful here. But Neptune is very, very idealistic. And yes, it does talk about unconditional love and also what happens when there isn't unconditional love, when there's conditional love, and guilt trips get played. Now, this is where it's kind of interesting because I think both Neptune and Venus can behave really beautifully. And yet in these squares, they can both be actually quite unloving, because they start to question each other. So you might feel that either people around you or you're doing this to other people, that there is this sort of question of, can I trust you? You seem different. You don't seem as unconditional. You don't seem to match my ideals right now. And so I'm feeling a bit curious. I'm feeling a bit doubtful about our connection. So, this energy is going on from the 3rd of November until the 17th of November, but it's exact on Saturday the 9th. So, the feeling of distortion that you might notice around people and their ideals, and what that means because of your ideals, that's something to watch out for because that could actually create a disconnection. So it's interesting in many ways that the fire energy is trying to connect you at a more deeper level. And yet this square here is also giving you reason to disconnect. Questions you might find useful to manage this square energy is to ask, where am I feeling othered right now? Where am I othering other people? So if you notice that you're judging other people in your life, you are making them different to you. Like we judge people, and often the judgments that we make aren't that, oh, aren't you lovely and blah blah blah, but more like, oh, isn't that interesting and weird, or isn't it strange that you think that, or isn't it this? And so these judgments, I think, are like these sort of projections. And if you remember, I said the 7th house is full of projections. So, whatever you're judging other people for and doubting them for might be things that you need to ask yourself, like, why is this a concern for me right now? Why is this coming up and making me feel doubtful? Why is, like, how do I feel othered, or how am I othering people? And what might that mean about myself? Ultimately, these are 2 octaves of love. And actually, they're really asking you to integrate earthly love, like real love and connection, with spiritual ideals, and to find a way to make them coexist. But that's not really going to happen through othering people. It's only going to happen through a place of transforming love. Going at it lovingly, going at it with a sense of forgiveness and compassion for the people in your life. So this is a very deep week ahead in terms of your relationships. And I love that for you. I think that's great. So things are moving, things are transforming. And maybe you can start to challenge some of the doubts and concerns that you have. Another thing, in terms of the moon, it's moving from the sign of Sagittarius, and it will be coming into Pisces by the end of the week. At the start, really until Thursday the 7th, the moon phase is in the waxing crescent, and so it's going through the sign of Sagittarius, really bringing your attention to people in your life, your partners, what they're up to, what and your shared experience together. And then it's coming into this place of Capricorn from later on Tuesday the 5th, taking you right the way through Wednesday the 6th, and also partly into Thursday the 7th. Now, this 8th house is a place of mischief. It's a place of secrets, it's a place of judgments, and it's also a place of shared wealth and shared assets and things like that. And as such, it can bring up, I think, polarity consciousness with people. Like things like blame, shame, guilt, and anger really reside in this place. And I think where they're coming up, it's to like the level that it's coming up is, I think, a description of maybe where you're not fully moving on to the next stage in your life. If you're allowing other people's expectations to confine you and determine who you are and how you are, you're not fully accepting your sovereignty. You're not fully accepting that you are a person in your own right and you can make your own decisions. If the blame, shame, guilt, and anger might be things that you're thinking about other people, again, you're holding yourself back by wondering about what's going on with other people, whereas you're not really focusing on your own aims and goals and transformations. One of the things about this 8th house experience is that it's moving us through a rite of passage. It is showing you your transformation from birth to being a toddler, to being a child, to being a young teen, to being of reproduction age, to maybe getting your first job, your first house, your first partner. This is a time of transitions and transformations. And so if you're caught up in judgment, it might be because you're holding yourself back from transforming. If you were in the business of transforming yourself, you wouldn't have time to judge others. In fact, you'd be enjoying the ride. And so, this is still in the waxing crescent phase. This is still very virginal, still very new and delicate. But please see where you might be holding yourself back and not fully transforming or moving to the next stage in your journey, because the moment you realize that you're about to start the next part of your journey, and of course our journey continues, not only do we go through all these rites of passage with adulthood, but then we come out the other end where we might be going through the menopause, or like turning a particular age, and then thinking, okay, well, the family stage is long gone, or maybe I'm not going to be seen as so attractive in my job. My body's changing. You are also going into mentorship and eldership. You are growing in wisdom. So you might not be growing stronger. You might be growing into wisdom. There are all sorts of different changes that we stop and halt our development at because we're not ready to. So allow whatever is new that wants to come out to fully evolve. And then right towards the end of the week, the moon is much more direct and is really wanting you to work from a place of freedom, from a place of an open mind. And I think all of these discussions that you're having, these warm discussions, these discussions that are bringing light to a dark situation, that is purifying your relationships, then I think you'll be feeling a lot of freedom and liberty in your life. So there you go, Gemini. I hope that's helpful for you in your week ahead. Have a great week ahead. If I can be of any help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description box. See you next time. Bye. Hey there. So Cancer, this is your forecast for the week ahead, starting Monday, the 4th of November, taking you right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. Now, this is quite a high stakes week for a lot of people. And there's quite a few pervasive patterns going on in this week ahead. If you're wanting more of a breakdown on a day-to-day basis, then please do check out the earlier forecast called Day-to-Day Forecast, which really talks about the different kinds of thoughts and feelings we might be having on each day and how to manage that energy. I really do include the moon aspects, like how the moon is interacting with other planets on each of those days. In this short forecast, what I'm going to do is talk in terms of how the moon is moving through your chart. And then also comment about the fire energy right now. So in this week ahead, we've got a lot more available fire energy, and I've got some really strong thoughts about how that's affecting you. In particular, I think your fire houses, like the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th, which are absolutely fantastic in terms of your career and moving forwards, they're all going to be affected. So I'm going to be talking about that. And I also want to pay some attention to the ongoing very strong square between Venus and Neptune that's taking place all week. It's from the 3rd until the 17th of November, but it's exact on the 9th. That's Saturday the 9th. That is a real strong influence in this week ahead. So let's see how we get on. So the first thing I really want to comment on really is that we're in the waxing crescent phase as we're going into this week ahead in the sign of Sagittarius after the new moon on the 1st of November. Now, the waxing crescent phase is going on really until about Thursday the 7th, and then it goes into a first quarter phase. What this really means is in the first part of the week until roughly the 7th, we're at a very sort of gentle phase, a gentle new moon phase, where any new starts, any new thoughts that you're making are kind of delicate, so you don't want to overwater them. You don't want to overtend to them. You don't want to go at it hammer and tongs because you're likely to disturb the footing. It needs to gather its own strength. So it's a time to, I think, really focus on the ideas you want to bring in, but not necessarily move too far ahead with them. Allow them to mature at their own rate. And then from the 7th of November, Thursday the 7th, as the moon is making its way into the sign of Aquarius, then it's really starting to pick up speed. And then it's time when you can get a bit more direct. So, just from looking at the moon phase, I really think that the beginning part of the week just feels quite delicate, possibly a bit raw, possibly a bit new. You're kind of tentatively walking forwards. And as you're getting through to the end of the week, it's more about taking practical action and aligned actions to what it is that you're creating right now. So let's talk about the fire energy then, because I mean, and this is quite fascinating, like in astrology, we talk about personal planets, we talk about the sun and the moon, but really I'm talking about Mercury, Venus and Mars. So Mercury is here at the beginning of Sagittarius. It moved on the 2nd of November. We've got Venus here at in the later degrees of Sagittarius. And on the 4th, literally as we go into this week ahead, Mars is going into the sign of Leo. So we've got these three in fire signs. And, the fire energy, I think, is determined. It's warm. It wants to light things up. So, and when I think about it, we've had a lot of things in water, in particular, a lot of stuff around the Scorpio energy, because that's the season we've just been through. We are still in, actually, but we are kind of slowly moving out of it. The Scorpio energy is fixed water, and I think with fixed water, it can sometimes get very stagnant. So, like if you've got a pond or something, you get a lot of silt and a lot of build up at the bottom where all the gunk goes. Everything kind of falls to the bottom, What I really get with this sort of fire energy is, we are coming out of these kind of slightly grimy moments, these slightly kind of sticky, stagnant moments. And the water energy is all about emotions and our psyche. So to me, I feel like our psyche is going to get stirred up. It's no longer going to stay stagnant. It's time now to kind of move it. And so what I really think with these personal planets, Mars in the 2nd house is going to bring in a bit of excitement and a bit of pride about the work that you're doing and your value in life. How resourceful are you, and are you rewarded for your resourcefulness? I think you're going to start to take some more pride, and it's stirring your psyche, it's stirring your emotions. With Mercury and also Venus here, this 6th house is very much about your work, but also about your day-to-day routine and how you manage your whole life. Venus here is been almost smoothing the way to make things a lot easier, but she's very lighthearted, so she has brought in this lightheartedness into your day-to-day existence. She's getting you to be a bit more upbeat and to not kind of sit in a creative funk, but to move out of it and get really practical about taking daily action. Now, Mercury in this part is absolutely encouraging you to speak up a bit more about how you're managing your life, about what's working in your life, what's not working in your life, and to talk around your problems. And you might not want to talk about them to other people, but to at least vocalize them. You could vocalize them to yourself. You could write to yourself. You could write yourself a little plan. So the whole idea of movement is taking place. And for you, I really think in this week ahead, that new movement is coming out really through necessity, because we all need to work, most likely. I do know some people that are wealthy enough not to work, but most of us do need to work, or we have something to attend to. But it's also coming from a place of daily routine. So what are you involved in? Okay, it's time to get moving on it. It's to me, I feel like you're coming out of a funk. Now, obviously, you're ruled by the moon, Cancer, and I don't know if I'm talking to Cancer sun, Cancer moon, or your ascendant being Cancer, but it makes you highly sensitive. So like I said, this is going to really speed things up for you. And your whatever you've been reticent to talk about or to really let out, it's going to flow. So you might find that the fire energy maybe doesn't make you strident and fiery and kind of super assertive or anything like that, but it might actually make you a little bit emotional, because it's stirring your emotions up a little bit first to get the fire out. Other words that I think about in terms of these fire signs, and I should also say the North Node is still ongoing in the sign of Aries and will be there until the end of January. We've also got Chiron, that's been a long-term lodger, in this part of your chart, which has brought up a lot of sensitivity and vulnerabilities in terms of how you stand in the world and, how you're creating a legacy for yourself in terms of your career. Like, do you feel like you're on track? I think you have probably been really critical of yourself and maybe suffered some criticisms over, the last 5 years or so. Chiron here makes you absolutely super sensitive about your output and how appreciated it is. So I really do think that these are all going to support each other. So wherever you've been vulnerable about your output and whether people are appreciating it, whether it's making any difference, whether you're on the right path and stuff like that, I actually think Venus is very helpful. She's going to give you the heart. She's going to let you know that you're okay. And you might get this sense of calm as she's encouraging you to continue, not to give up. But it's also, I think, indicative that, this, with Mercury will come into a lovely trine with Chiron, not just yet, but towards the 25th, just before Mercury goes retrograde. But Venus is also in this lovely trine with Chiron. Chiron in the 10th doesn't just look at your vulnerabilities, but it also brings in really good mentors. So I think this week ahead could be a really good moment in time to recognize, like, when and how you might want a mentor to show up for you, or maybe you're going into a position of mentoring. I often find the people that do mentoring also have a mentor, and like, once you see the value of mentorship, you want to do it both ways, because it's part of your growth journey. So don't discount mentorship, or having some kind of coaching based supervisor or someone you trust just to run things past, because the collaboration that can come up between you both right now, and also the stirring of the emotions, I think you're likely to dislodge some of those things that have been kept hidden, because it actually feels safe enough to look at those now, and Mars in Leo is kind of warming this up and really giving you an expectation that you ought to be earning a bit more than you already are. And it's like a knowing, you're quite sure of it. And this newfound pride in what you do, I think is going to have great effects. Now, both Mercury and Leo are due to go retrograde, and they will retrograde, Mars is retrograding into Cancer. And that's quite long term. That's going on from, I think, the some point in December right the way through to the end of February. But Mars will come back and eventually get into a trine with Chiron, later on in 2025. So whatever you're setting up right now in terms of mentorship and moving things along, I do think there are going to be incremental leaps forwards, but you need to set it up now. So Mercury is going to come into this trine, but then go retrograde, and then go forwards again. So by the end of, in fact, I'm just going to check the dates for you. Let me just double check, because I haven't actually commented on this particular thing so far in these readings. So let's just have a look. So Mercury goes retrograde at 22 degrees, then he goes forward. Yeah, so that's taking you into January of 2025. So whatever you're setting up right now, in the first week in January, Mercury will go past, Mercury will get to this Venus point and move past this trine with Chiron. So, the kind of support, the kind of energy, the kind of possibilities that come up when you are actively creating with other people and checking in with each other. I think one of the problems sometimes is, we've broken out of our families, and, sometimes we've broken out of our relationships a little bit and broken out of continuous connection with people. I know people can be a real pain in the backside. And, I spent quite a few years living on my own and really loving my space, because it gave me that chance to really be to have my own agency. And there is also a problem, and you don't have to live on your own to just have your own agency. I mean, you can be in a relationship, a long-term relationship, and a family, and also do a lot of your processing on your own. But one of the things about being a bit of an island is you never really get to hear yourself. But when you're in these very sort of dynamic relationships, you get to hear yourself, and you also get to have that fed back to you. And there's some real usefulness in that. You really get to see the parts of you that you might not want to look at, but that can actually bring you closer to, one of these motivating thoughts. All of a sudden things make sense. And in terms of Mars, let's just look to when Mars is coming into that trine with Chiron, which is a bit later on in the year. A lot later on in the year. So we're talking around June time, around the first week in June. So whatever you're setting up right now, I think will be yielding results in in early January, and then also in mid-June as well. So I really do think, don't hold back from collaborating with people who you think might be good coaches for you or useful, because that they can see you, they can help you, they can help keep you accountable. And I think that'd be really useful. So I see this as a time of moving forwards and feeling quite confident about it. Now, something else I want to add in, and that's the Venus square Neptune energy. So Venus is at the end of Sagittarius, and Venus will be going into the sign of Capricorn, I think on the 11th. That's, the next week. And that's going to be lighting up your relationships, which will be kind of cool. But in this square, both Venus and Neptune are harmonics or octaves of love. They are known, Venus is known as being the sort of terrestrial octave or harmonic of love. So we feel things, we relate to people, we feel things with our senses, the sensation, the touch. All of our senses are activated with Venus, and it brings out a lovely sort of creativity in us. She's generous and she wants to connect and wants to flow. Now, Neptune is a higher harmonic of Venus, supposedly, and so it's like a higher possibility of love. And one way that we talk about that is maybe unconditional love, and I also think idealism, one of the, I think sometimes faults, but also one of the best things about Neptune is that, Neptune is really idealistic. It can raise us up. We start to think outside the box. We start to think outside of the context of our life. We start to think in terms of spirituality, beliefs, what is our purpose? That really becomes a big issue. And we have ideals that come from that place. Now, with this square, I think there is a feeling of disillusionment, and possibly false, a feeling of failed expectations, failed ideals that you might have in your relationships. These two in a square is could really be showing you that there is this place of losing trust, of not really trusting the people around you. Maybe your ideals that you hold for other people are so big that it stops you from connecting. So, if you're feeling a bit lonely, if you're feeling like you're a bit disconnected from people, that's a big question to ask yourself is, are my ideals getting in the way of connecting with the people I love? And you might also want to ask yourself if you've been othering people, or do you feel like other people have been othering you, like saying, ooh, you're just like this, pointing their finger and saying, because you believe this, that means, and then comes a whole load of judgment. So there are these moments, I think, where people are really feeling unsure about who they are trusting, and that people are failing by each other's standards or ideals as to how you're meant to be as a human right now. But of course, they are both octaves of love, and they don't get healed by falling out. They actually get healed really by making that decision that you're going to transform things through love, or through being loving or kind, or going into forgiveness. Underneath all of your ideals and the ideals that other people might hold for you are real people. And, real people have fears, and they have preferences, and they have insecurities. They have like real lived experiences that might then make them change their mind about things. So, you cannot really get beyond this whilst feeling the distance between you and another. It's important to get underneath that with kindness and love. And of course, Cancerians are very, very kind and very, very loving. And also, on the slight sort of flip side of this, Cancerians are very, very good at putting up defensives. So, one piece of advice I'd give you in terms of this week ahead, if you're feeling a bit disconnected, is drop your defenses. Because, or at least look at your defenses. Are they coming from impossible ideals that you are holding other people accountable to? Are you expecting people to behave a certain way that maybe you wouldn't actually adhere to yourself? There's a lot going on here. So on the one hand, I see that this is very, very deeply dynamic and helping you move ahead and feel a lot more confident about your possibilities for work and how you're going to move through that. And at the same time, if there's something you could tweak, it would be wherever you feel slightly disconnected from people, invest a little bit in those relationships. Or if you really know that those relationships are done for, focus on relationships that you want to enhance. Kind of let go of the ones that aren't going to, or you can't invest in right now, but focus on the ones that really do feel good. And also be mindful that you don't over expect and over idealize that person in your life. So I hope that's helpful in this week ahead. If you're interested, I did do a November update and also a new moon update that are already released, which will also give you a lot more news and ideas. But I hope that's helpful for the week ahead, Cancer. If I can be of any further help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description field. You'll find links where you can book to invite me to work with you. Have a great week, and hopefully we'll catch up real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Leo. So this is your forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. Now, I don't know if you're a sun Leo, like your moon's in Leo, or your ascendant's in the sign of Leo, but this is really to focus on the sort of quintessential Leo-ness of the week ahead. If you're looking for a day-by-day breakdown, then please do check out the day-to-day forecast in the first part of this video, where I literally sort of dissect all of the different aspects going on and describe how you might want to use your energy and to spend your time, like how to prepare for it in the best way for you. In this one, what I want to talk about are the overarching patterns in this week ahead. And one of them is very, very fiery, which is great. The fire energy that you are absolutely aligned to as a Leo is coming online. That's really helpful. We've also got this square between Venus and Neptune that is very, very strong. It's the strongest aspect in this week ahead, and it's active from the 3rd until the 17th of November, but it's exact, really strong on Saturday the 9th. So that's also important. I also do want to just sort of describe the kind of moon energy we've got going on right now as well. We're going through the waxing crescent, which is the very, very tiny slither of the moon after the new moon that was on the 1st of November. So we are in a very slow and gentle and delicate growth phase up until Thursday the 7th. And then when it goes into the first quarter, it's time to actually take considerable action and to put some energy and clout behind it. So to me, it feels like, we are tentative at first as we're going into this week ahead. It feels like every little step we're taking, we're a bit nervous about. It's delicate. It's a delicate new start. And so be very wary that you don't overwork it, make it too clunky, and add too much pressure on yourself. So I'm going to go straight into the fire energies because obviously you've got an understanding of the fire. I'll start with Leo, which has just gone into Mars has just gone into Leo. This is really awakening your sense of identity and like who you are in your body, that feeling of strength and vitality. If ever there was a time for you to get fit, to practice your fitness, to really demonstrate your health and enjoy your hair as well, because Mars is so physical. The first house is all about your identity and your personality and what you're known for. And the sign of Leo is absolutely known for beautiful hair, like really great hair. So this is a time to look after yourself. And also look after how you look. And of course, the Leo tendencies of sort of pride, like wearing your hair sort of like big and proud. These are all the sort of typical Leo things: bright colors, strong colors, comfortable textures, thick textures, different sensuous feelings that you can enjoy as you're layering things. It's almost like you're wilder, a little bit wilder. And, I think that's really, really helpful. Mars coming into the first just gives you a lot more determination to be yourself and dedication to yourself. So you might also find that you're feeling a bit more assertive, feeling a bit clearer about who you are, where your boundaries are, who you definitely aren't. And it's really bringing up some sort of strong level of pride. What I will say is, Mars is only in the sign of Leo until early December. He's moving quite slowly, and then he goes back into the 12th. So all of these changes you're making right now and starting this week, because literally this happens on the 4th of November, these changes will get reviewed, once, Mars goes retrograde, and he's retrograde until the end of February. He's going to take you back into a place of recall, so you're practicing your new persona, but it's not necessarily set in stone. What I really recognize is that around June of next year, whatever you're putting in place right now will really come into its own. So do pay it some attention. Really do think about who you are, who you're developing into, who you're coming into, especially if this is to do with your public, what people know about you in the public. Like if you're working for yourself, like your branding, your personal branding, really do think in those terms. It's not to say it's not going to work right from word go, but to me, it just feels like there is a new start for you. And that new start will get a little bit tweaked, in December, January, right the way through to the end of February. And then from that point when Mars is starting to go forwards again, you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So I think that's exciting. You've also got Mercury and Venus in fire signs, activating your 5th house, which is about creativity, what lights you up, what you love doing, also intimacy, sensuality. So, this is very playful, especially with Mars in the 1st and Venus in the 5th. This could be a time when you're really enjoying yourself, with your partner, like making the most of your bodies right now. This is a fantastic time, in fact, to know who you are and to meet someone and to have the creativity and that feeling of yielding between you, that Venus is really representing. But it's also absolutely emphasizing the desire for something new, the desire for, to be creative, in your life. Mercury here as well is really helping you talk more about your creativity. And this does include your children as well. So, Mercury and Venus in this part, if you've got children, I think is really, really helpful. It's creating a better rapport with your children. So I just think your rapport with other people is increasing. It's more playful. The more you're sharing about yourself, what lights you up, the easier all of your relationships are getting. Now, we also do have the North Node and Chiron, who are long-term like lodgers in the sign of Aries, another fire sign. And they've been really mixing it up and trying to get you out of yourself, really into an adventure, really showing you where you might be a bit vulnerable towards feeling free and exploring your freedom and liberty. I would imagine you've changed quite a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. And then in this last 16, 17 months with the North Node going through here, it feels like you've had more of a call to adventure, more of a call to be independent, to follow new thoughts, beliefs, politics, philosophies with a sense of truth and awareness. I really feel like you've been called to demonstrate the new sort of adventurous Leo that you are. So all in all, I think this is really helpful. It almost doesn't matter what's going on in the world right now, because if you can focus on what brings you light and what brings you joy, I think other things will start to fall into place. Other words I would say with this fire trine is like there is a search for truth and growth and vitality and purity. When you think of fire is used in lots of purification rituals, and it lights us up. It brightens things. We go from dark to light. We are coming out of a period of maybe having sort of stagnant emotions, like there has been a predominance of water energy. Now the sun is your ruler, and the sun is still in the sign of Scorpio all this week. And of course, Scorpio is one of these fixed water signs. It does show where you get caught in your emotions. And so even though your ruling planet could be a bit caught in emotions right now, especially at home, I do think the natural joy and upliftment energy, the energetics of the fire trine are serving you well. They are lifting you up. And Mars coming in here is showing that it's time to be a bit more direct and a time to explore that a lot more. As we start the week, the moon is also in the fire sign as well. So it really does get off to a good start, I think. Now, the thing to bear in mind would be Venus in a square to Neptune. So, Venus is absolutely asking you to relate more to people and to share what you're passionate about with people. And yet Neptune up here in the 8th is really showing that there's maybe a confusion, maybe there's a sense of bewilderment. It feels like the people who maybe have quite a lot of power in your life or who you're related to, it almost feels like they've got expectations of you and they're highly idealistic. They've got these really strong ideals that they want you to live by, which aren't always clear, which you can't always interpret. And why would you want to live by somebody else's standards for yourself? It's a place of discomfort, that you want to be able to share who you are. And yet it feels like, some of the people closest to you, if you were to share who you really are, it wouldn't meet with their ideals. So that's a level of discomfort here in this week ahead. And what I would really say to you is, how are you loving yourself? And how are your ideals about how you want people to behave getting in the way of your connection? Venus will be, she's going to be moving into Capricorn soon, and soon the energies will feel a little bit easier, a little bit more flowing. But right now, there's so much passion and so much of an emphasis for you to follow what you're feeling lit up by, that it's just feeling a little bit damp and a little bit disappointing, that it feels like it's a bit of a fight, and that the people that love you or claim to love you feels like they're putting you in these little guilt trips, these little guilt cycles. They're always guilt catchers and guilt throwers, and they can only exist together. So I wonder how you can lovingly recognize when there's a guilt situation going on and have the presence of mind to say, hey, sounds like you're trying to make me feel guilty. And normally when that happens, people will say, oh no, absolutely not. How could you say that? That's a guilt trip, by the way. And they will probably protest a bit too much. And then sure enough, within 3 or 4 minutes, they will say something again. They'll say, oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm really saying is this. And it's really hard when you're playing a guilt game to come out of it. Listen out for it's all like this. But it's always going to come up. And it's really important to stay lovingly firm and say, do you know what? It sounds like you're making me wrong. It sounds like you want me to feel guilty about my behavior. And really stay firm with it. There's nothing to say you can't address your behavior. There's nothing to say you can't recognize people playing guilt tricks on you, and also look at yourself. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But, it might be helpful to have a few phrases to hand. For instance, that's just not going to work for me right now. Like how can you sort of defend your boundaries a little bit, so that you can keep your natural sense of passion going without getting deflated. So any way that you can say it, in the way of, look, until I can feel comfortable and free about your suggestion, it's not going to work for me, or I'm not comfortable with that. I can't do that right now. I don't have the resources, and they could be time, emotional, spiritual, physical. I don't have the resources in place to do that. And if I did, I would be putting those resources to this, so have some words ready. Mercury here in the 5th is going to really help you be creative with your words and stand firm. You are in a place of joy. You're in a place of creation right now, and you are recreating yourself. And I think to the direct level that you can recognize where people are trying to pee on your chips, to rain on your parade, and to stand firm, but lovingly firm, I think you'll do remarkably well. So there you go. Hope that's helpful, Leo. If you do want a little bit help unpacking your chart, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description field, where you can invite me to work with you. Just click on a link and boom, it's done. So there you go. Lots and lots of love to you. Have a great week ahead, and catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Virgo. So this is for you. This is your week ahead, Virgo. Now, this is the forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. And, this is an overview of the strongest patterns and resonances that I want to explore through the Virgo mindset. And that could be for you as a Virgo sun, somebody with Virgo moon, somebody with Virgo rising or ascendant. Now, if you do want the day-to-day forecast, and the Virgo energy does like to break things down, then look to the day-by-day forecast, which is earlier in this video, where I go through every single day of the week ahead and talk about its aspects, but more importantly, how you might want to use that energy, what might be challenging, what might help you release it. So that's all covered there. But this, I think, is more about the spirit of what's going on for you right now. So what I'm going to cover is all of the fire energies that are really picking up in this week ahead, including your ruling planet, which is in the fire sign of Sagittarius down here. So that's Mercury. I'm also going to be talking about the Venus and Neptune square that's going on. And it's going on from the 3rd to the 17th of November, but it's exactly and really, really active around Saturday, the 9th of November. And also paying some attention to the moon phase that we're in right now. So we're in a waxing crescent phase, which is gentle and delicate. There is a sense that there is a new start, and that new start, I think, for you is really coming from how you feel like a sense of belonging in the world. It's time for you to feel like you're belonging, feel like you're part of something, and maybe to create better relationships with other people around you, from your neighborhood and from your peer group, maybe from your family, So there are these delicate new starts. And up until Thursday, the 7th of November, I really feel like you need to do your own thing for sure. But go gentle, be gentle, gentle, gentle. Everything is delicate. And if you push things too far, things snap, things break, things grow too fast, and they don't have the roots. So give it chance to root on its own. Make your decision, take the action, but then let it settle on its own. But then from Thursday, the 7th, as the moon is coming into the sign of Aquarius, and coming into this first quarter phase, then it feels like it's a time to take real direct action and say, okay, my project, my idea, my feeling of belonging is starting to grow now. Okay, let's book this appointment. Let's meet this person. Let's do this, do that, blah, 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 blah. So I really feel that can come on in leaps and bounds. So I guess that's the moon out of the way already. So let's have a look at the fire contingent then. So what's going on there? Well, we've got 3 personal planets in the fire signs. So on the 2nd of November, which is literally coming up, I'm recording this on the 1st of November. So tomorrow, Mercury goes into the sign of Sagittarius. To you, that will feel, like there is a new scene starting. There is a new feeling. Maybe you're wanting to talk a bit more at home. This is very much activating your home environment, and how you are at home, how your family is, what needs to get organized. I would say organization is quite key. You might be creating a better story about your home and about your home life. Because the sign of Mercury in Sagittarius is not in the best sign for you, I have to say. Mercury isn't that comfortable in the sign of Sagittarius because the Sagittarius energy takes it off on these great big mind loops and these big old stories, this big context. And of course, as a Virgo with the Mercury energy, you much prefer to know little chunks of information and to understand them and to be able to kind of build them up together rather than seeing a great big flipping Sagittarian picture. But do you know what? This is quite helpful. I think this is going to help you recreate your story about belonging, which really matches the new moon in Scorpio. So I think you are creating this new sense of who you are, this maybe new home story, this new hero's journey story about how you've come to be and what you've gone through. This part of the chart is very much about your roots. And maybe some of your past mistakes, what you've learned and how that's changed you, how you've adapted because of that. It's very personal, very private, but I think you're going to get the chance to make sense of it. Now, it's interesting that I'm talking about making sense of your private journey because on the 4th, which is when this forecast really starts from, so Monday the 4th, Mars goes into the sign of Leo, and this part of your chart is a place of unconsciousness. It's a place of secrets, mystery. It's your unconscious mind. All of your programs that you've got about yourself, including your fears, your judgments, your insecurities, a lot of old memories that maybe have disturbed you, and you've kind of locked them away because you don't want to activate them. And maybe you've created a little strategy to avoid that ever happening again. All of that is locked in there. So Mars is coming to this very sort of programmable part of your chart. And, Mars in a fire sign is really kind of lighting the way. He's a bit clumsy. He really wants to see what's what. So don't be disturbed at all. Just be aware that you may well stumble into some of your old patterns. And that might happen through the people that you've got in your life, because also Chiron and the North Node here in this part of your chart are really bringing up judgments of other people. And really the true cost of having other people in your life is being expressed. And this is where I think you'll get these like little kind of triggers that come up, and all of a sudden Mars is there to shine the light on what's going on in your thoughts and feelings. So I think this week ahead is quite foundational, in as much as it's going to give you a lot of material to see what's really working, what's not working, where some of these really negative views that you have of yourself are. It's very internalized, really, really internalized. And I will say, you've had Chiron here for a long time in your chart, and it's really not comfortable having Chiron going through the 8th. It really does bring you back to all your old family patterns where you've had to share resources and kind of deal with it. Life is messy, when there's overlap between something that you own and I've got this annoying fly in this room. I've got my zapper. I'm really ready. I keep stopping in between signs to try and kill these flies. They are so annoying. Sorry. Just in case he flies past the camera again. But Chiron, is bringing up this sense of like these old oversteps, where people have overstepped. They've stepped over a boundary and into your territory. And, this 8th house can be quite psychological. And it can really show old guilt, shame, blame, and anger where things haven't gone quite right, especially in terms of family patterns and family stories. So I actually think this week ahead, with Mercury, your ruling planet coming in here, and Venus just really showing you how you can love yourself at home. I think, there is this sort of emerging new narrative for you that's coming up, that if you're brave enough to look, and you're courageous enough and humorous enough to kind of rewrite it a little bit, I think you can create a new kind of story for yourself that is actually a lot more empowering, that helps people understand you but not feel sorry for you. You know, it helps people understand the growth you've been through, and to feel excited for you and to help them support you, which brings me right the way back to the new moon that's just happening here. Like literally today, as I'm recording this, the new moon is bringing up this new sense of, where do I belong? How do I belong? And so this really leads into rewriting your story. So this is very strong. Now, the last thing I want to share with you is Venus is in a square with Neptune right now, you know, from the 3rd to the 17th of November, but it's happening all week. And Venus down here is very, very compassionate at home. She's absolutely wanting to help you feel at ease, help you feel comfortable. You're really wanting to be comfortable at home and probably wanting to spend a bit more time at home. But Neptune in the 7th, you know, has been there for quite some time. Let's face it, you've absolutely had your fill of people who come into your life and let you down. You know, people that say they're going to do loads of stuff and then they don't. You know, people who you might call liars, but you might realize that they're just people who are drifting and not really entirely sure of themselves. Gaslighting can come up. You know, I'm sure you've been on quite a gaslighting journey for quite a few years, because Neptune coming through this part of your chart, and you've also got Saturn here as well, right here. I didn't put him in, but he is here. You know, there's been a certain amount of pain with the people in your life. So, you know, with Venus here, you're really wanting to feel comfortable at home. And yet there is this square to Neptune just sort of bringing up a few things. What I would say about this is it's a time when we don't exactly know who to trust. You know, there's a feeling of disillusionment, and maybe you've had higher ideals. You've put lots of high ideals on the people in your life, and maybe they're just not living up to them. Maybe they can't live up to them. I wonder if you can live up to them. And maybe they are your ideals because you've written your ideals based on what you know about you. Really, this time, I think, is about shifting ideals and coming into a center. That's not to say that you like accept nasty behavior or anything like that. Absolutely not. But, you know, what I would say is, where are your ideals getting in the way of true connection? And also, where is connection getting in the way of your ideals? You know, this week ahead is time to really get clear about where you might be putting too much on other people, and where people might be volunteering for things and you're expecting them to do them because they've said they're going to do them, and then they don't, and then you get disappointed. You know, there are some people in life that just take everyone's words and they say, okay, that's interesting, and they just take it at face value, but don't actually think, oh, they're really going to do it. And so there are some people who are able to have people that maybe don't always fulfill what they're going to say in their life, but they just like being around them and they find it kind of fun. You know, they kind of go, oh, okay, well, we'll see. That'll be fun. That'll be great. I hope you do that. That'll be fantastic. But they don't pin their life on somebody's behavior turning out a certain way. So I just think with this kind of very difficult square that's coming up right now, just be aware that you may well be feeling a little bit like people are a letdown. Oh, here we go again. They're letting me down. I wonder if you can transform it in a new way. And also with this aspect, it's time to ask yourself, are you loving yourself enough? Because, you know, I think where you're loving yourself enough, you will find a way to get your needs met, you know, and you'll find the energy, especially with Mars kind of working well with all this fire energy, with all this personal energy in the fire signs. You've got more competency and more energy than usual. So I wonder how you can trust yourself more to do things your own way, trust yourself more to get things done, so that the pain or the sting of other people saying they're going to do stuff and then they're not, then it really doesn't touch you so much, you know, because people do change their minds. And yeah, people are living their lives, and, you know, it's quite confusing for everyone. Again, I'm not making excuses for people who are being deliberately deceitful. But there are gradations of that, and, you know, help yourself, understand that your ideals in some respects might be pushing away the connection. This is a difficult one. And again, this might be part of your story. If you are going into your story, you might see where that's happening. It might actually be quite useful to recognize, because again, I think true intimacy can occur when we really allow ourselves and the people around us to be themselves, faults and all. Not putting people on a pedestal and then getting crushed when we realize just how feeble and human they are. So I hope that's helpful to you, Virgo, in this week ahead. And like I said, obviously as we go into next week, the picture will be changing. But these were the most prevalent things that I thought to mention in this moment. So I hope that's helpful. Have a great week ahead. And hopefully catch you soon. If I can be of any help, get in touch, because all of my details are below and you can easily just invite me to work with you. So lots of love to you. Catch you another time. Bye for now. Hey there, Libra. So this is your forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. Now, if you're interested in the nitty gritty of this week ahead, i.e. what's happening on a day by day basis, then check out the earlier chapter called Day-to-Day Forecast, where I literally go through each day and say what the energetics are, how you might be feeling, and what you might choose to do to be able to make the most of that energy. In this short forecast, what I'm going to be looking at is the sort of overarching themes of this week ahead astrologically, and what does that mean to be a quintessential Libra. Now, that could be you as a Libra sun, you as a Libra rising or ascendant, or you with your moon in Libra. However you're using this, I really want to touch on what it is to be a Libra in this week ahead with these particular energies. Now, the energies that I'm going to be focusing on, I think the main part of it is the fire energy. Like, we are really coming into a very strong fire pattern for this week ahead. I also want to talk probably at some length about Venus in a square to Neptune, because Venus is in a square to Neptune between the 3rd and the 17th of November. And it's exact on Saturday the 9th, which is in this week ahead. So it's really, really a strong influence in this week ahead. In fact, it is the strongest, to my mind, it's the strongest energy that we've got in this week ahead. So yeah, that's where I'm going to put my focus. Also, I would also like to, paint a bit of a picture about the waxing phase that we're in right now. So picture this, on the 1st of November, the day of the new moon, that's actually the day I'm recording this. So, the moon appears to disappear and then it starts to grow. And so we're in the waxing crescent phase. And the whole idea of this is we're sowing a seed, and we're waiting for that seed to sort of gather momentum. In the first part of this, taking us really until about the 7th of November, which is Thursday, the energy is gentle. It's like you've got your idea, you've maybe sown your seed, you've spoken about your idea, maybe created it in your head, you might be playing it in your head a few times, you might have some kind of new moon ritual, you might have journals, I don't know, but the whole idea of it is to hold that energy and to hold it with a sense of gratitude, with a sense of expectation, and just to kind of gently be aware of that possibility. But it's not a time to yank your idea and to like really plant it in and to do some really strong stuff. That really comes from Thursday the 7th, when the moon is around about here. So what I want to share with you really is, in terms of this week ahead, early on, really from Monday to Thursday, you really want to be gentle with yourself, gentle with your ideas, make little steps forwards, cast your vote if you're in America and you haven't done that already, do what you need to do to satisfy everything. But don't expect to create a brand new start and to go great guns at it, like to be firing on all cylinders. Just gradually let it sort of settle. And then from the 7th, that's the time when the energy picks up again. And it's time to sense what energy has grown and then to know how to step into that energy at a much greater level. So you are being asked to sense this quite a bit, and this energy is really starting from the 3rd and the 4th, which I think really has a lot to do with how you belong in the world, who you belong to, which community you belong to. Do you feel like there is a sense of belonging? So maybe some of these new starts have something around that. And then later on in the week, you're getting sort of creative and excited about it and deciding on what you want to do. And then you are really getting into the doing of it. So again, just take it slow and allow it to come in and to mature in its own way. So the next thing I want to focus on then is really the fire energies, because here's the thing. On Monday the 4th, Mars is actually going into the sign of Leo, which is here. So literally Mars is starting the week going straight into the sign of Leo, which is a fire sign. And Mercury, which is here, actually went into the sign of Sagittarius, or will be going into the sign of Sagittarius on the 2nd of November. Venus, your sign, has been in Sagittarius for a short while now. So we've got the body, the mind, the heart, you could say mind, body, soul, the three of them, one about feelings, one about embodiment, and the other about the mentality. All three of these personal energies are in fire signs. But what's more is we've got, as you well know, because you lovely Librans, you've been, I think, suffering from the position of Chiron and also the North Node in recent times. They've both been in your opposing sign, in the sign of Aries, for ages. And this part of your chart is absolutely about your relationships and how things are going. So Chiron brings up a sense of vulnerability and insecurity around your relationships. Maybe the people in your life are insecure and vulnerable. Sometimes the planets going through here really describe the people we have in our life. So you may well have had to do a lot of buoying up for the people in your life, like really help them get comfortable. And of course, that's a bit deleterious. You're pushing all of your energies to helping other people through the goodness and kindness of your own heart because you love people. And of course, like the energy of you, it's like you've been kind of seeping away the you-ness of you. So how can you get your you-ness back is a really big question to sort of understand. And then the North Node coming through here as well has created lots of almost like fated understandings of what's going on with you and your relationships, like changes. It feels like things are very significant in relationships at the moment. So, the fire signs, like Sagittarius here with Mercury and Venus here, it's about how you belong and learn about where you belong. So who is your community? Who are your friends locally? Do you have family around you? Do you have a series of brothers, sisters, cousins and stuff like that? Are you in a worldwide community or in a very sort of like intimate community? Like, do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like you belong exactly where you are right now? I think a lot of us are suffering from a feeling of being an orphan. Like, not everyone's an orphan. I'm not an orphan. But it's a funny term, isn't it? Like we almost feel like we have lost our roots, like we don't belong anywhere. Like, often belonging comes from, knowing where you grow up and having a strong sense of a relationship with parents. And that's not possible for many people. I note that for sure. And many people that watch this channel may have lost their parents, judging from the demographics. But, this feeling of unrootedness right now for you, Libra, is really taking on a new shape, and a new form. It feels like you're able to talk about it and to get a sense of celebration or get a sense of belonging, that people are interested, people want to connect with you. Venus, your ruling planet, having been in this area for a couple of weeks, is really, really helpful. Venus has been almost like sprinkling magic fairy dust in your local community, really helping you have opportunities to connect at a deeper level and to feel significant. Mars coming through this sign is going to help you get a lot more direct with your friends and your networks, and friends of friends. And, if you've got stepchildren or I also think of in-laws or outlaws, you might call them, in this area of the chart. Not every astrologer would agree with that, by the way, but, like the sort of outer context of friends, like a sort of further sort of expression of them. The 5th house is that place that brings us joy and shows how we light up and, what we're passionate about. And so the 11th house is actually the 5th house of our partners. If our partners are here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go. It's like the people that they're bringing into our life, so it's the wider scope of friendships, so there's this new fieriness. You're bringing light to your relationships, with the friends of your friends, the friends of your partners, the friends of the people you collaborate with, your actual friends where you belong, and then the people that you're in relationships with, all the things that you've learned recently in terms of how you support people and also how you need to support yourself. It's all been done for, I think, this time, and other times as well. I don't want to make it too dramatic, but these personal planets are getting things moving again. So whatever emotional stagnation had been going on, let's face it, we've had Neptune down here, Saturn's also here, and very recently we've had, Mercury and Venus, and now the Sun is still here in the sign of Scorpio, and the new moon in Scorpio on the 1st of November. The sign of Scorpio can stagnate emotions. Emotions sometimes don't know where to go. It's fixed water. And so this fire energy, I think, is warming things up, maybe boiling away some of that water and turning it into steam. There is a movement, your emotions, your problems that you might have identified in your relationships here, things are starting to move again. And you're feeling a bit more optimistic and a bit more buoyant about it. What I think you're setting up right now, I think is going to be specifically useful in terms of early January and mid-June. So, for instance, both Mercury and Mars are going to go retrograde within, a month of each other. So although they're in these fire signs at the moment, and they are making a trine to the North Node, which is really helpful. It's giving you a new start with all of your relationships. They will eventually come into a trine with Chiron, where you really get the full learning and understanding of it and the healing of it. But, Mercury is going to go retrograde. And by early January, Mercury will be back here and will start to move towards being in a trine with Chiron. So what you're setting up now for yourself in terms of your friendships, I think by early to mid-January, things have cleared, things have freed up. So you might find that sense of belonging that you were hoping for feels much stronger, and some of the resistance that you may have felt about getting involved with people within your local community, some of those fears and insecurities will have been worked out. Like sometimes time is a great healer. So I do think your communications and the need for you to be seen in your community is going to get stronger, especially from January. And in terms of Mars up here, he's really giving a sense of pride, a sense of color, a sense of personal pizzazz. It feels like you're a lot more dominant, a lot more colorful, a lot more able to share a great story amongst friends and to have a much greater influence around friends who are just slightly out of your usual networks. And what you're setting up for yourself in this week, and in fact, really until early December, which is when Mars goes retrograde. Mars is going to work out a few things. He's going to go back into your career and to think things through and to work out how you can be more direct in your career. And then by mid-June, as you've got clearer about your career and a lot more direct about it, a lot more certain about it, when you come back into this area, or Mars comes back into this area, you are absolutely going to be so much more compelling, have so much more influence than you do right now. So, in spite of the fact that this week ahead is a major big turning point possibly for America, and there's loads of different things going on in the world right now, if you could pay some attention to the idea of where do you belong in your community, where do you belong with your relationships, where do you belong in terms of your work and your reach and your level of influence, if you pay a bit of attention to that and and really reflect on what you've been learning around that, I think that, come January and like mid-June, you're going to be in a very, very powerful position. And there's a lot of other things that are changing between now and then as well. Last thing I want to focus on in particular for this week ahead is this difficult square, which you'll be feeling given that you're a Libra and ruled by Venus. Venus in the square to Neptune, these planets are both octaves of love. They are both harmonics of love. Venus is a very homely, in your body kind of love, with a real relatable person, the desire to share and the desire to connect. Whereas Neptune is very idealistic and conceptual, very, very creative, advocates for unconditional love. But can you ever actually fully realize unconditional love in human form? Who knows? Can you do it permanently? Maybe in the moment. I'm really unsure about this. I think it's nice to aspire to, but again, aspiration, inspiration, ideals, they're all slightly out of the human grasp. We can feel into the feeling of it, in our hearts and our minds, we get a sense of it. We get the sense of the magnitude of it, but can we ever really birth those ideas into the reality? I'm not sure about that. And so in this week ahead, one thing that I would caution you about is how you go about your relationships when you feel like people are letting you down, or their input is somehow letting you down in terms of how you are managing your work. So for instance, and your life. So if you've got somebody in your life that is trying to help you out, is maybe not doing chores very well at home, or, somebody that you share stuff in your life and they're not quite being their word, really look to see where your ideals about how they should behave are creating a difficulty in terms of your connection with them. This is a time when we have really, really high expectations on people. And, when people fail by our really high expectations on them. So just relax it a little bit if you can. I really advise you focus on yourself, focus on your own relationships, focus on your own goals. There are lots of really beautiful things happening right now. And if you can take your foot off the brake off the accelerator of what you're expecting from other people and turn it inward and expect from yourself, kind of invest in yourself, expect the best in yourself, love yourself, build yourself up. The funny thing is, as you build yourself up, you'll realize you won't need other people around you to maybe fulfill a few things for you. So, I guess what I'm saying is this square can sometimes show us where we might be needy, but not realizing it's our need and kind of fobbing it off as ideals. It's almost, we're not quite truthful about it. If we could really sit down and kind of map it out, we might realize, oh yeah, I've got these really high ideals. I'm expecting a lot from the people around me. And actually they're humans and I really love them. And actually, isn't it easier just to love people as they are rather than love them for the potential you see in them? So this is, I think, a reality check. And also a reality check on you. So anywhere where ideals are creating a disconnection, can you look at that? Can you examine that? And always turn it inside as well. Realize where you're putting too much on yourself, and love yourself the way you are and just expect that you are going to rise yourself up, but don't put those real heavy ideals on you. Another way this could manifest is that you stop trusting in people. And again, that's a sign that you're disconnecting. And, I really feel that our ideals and expectations on each other are sometimes the greatest cause of a separation. It's that feeling that somebody is judging you. It's really uncomfortable. So just be mindful of that and see how it turns up and think about it and see it all as information rather than kind of depersonalize it if you can, Libra. This has been a hard time for you, with Chiron and the North Node going through here. I get most comments from people with Libra and Ascendant for sure, or a heavily Libran chart. You have been absolutely affected more this year than most signs, I would say. But this, I really do see that you might see that you're also adding into the problem as well. And, as you take your, like dial it back a little bit and just focus on you, things should improve quite dramatically. So there you go. I hope that's helpful for you in terms of the week ahead. Sending you heaps of love, Libra. I love your energy. If you want to get in touch, or if you want me to unpack your chart a little bit in a private session, then just invite me to work with you, and all the links are below. But anyway, catch you next time. Have a great week, and let's see how you get on. Bye for now. Hey there, Scorpio. So how are you doing this week? This is a forecast taking you from Monday the 4th of November right the way through to Sunday the 10th of November. Now, some could say this is the week that a lot of people have been waiting for, and a lot of people have been dreading as well. This is a big week. Lots of different things going on around the world. Now, if you're interested in the sort of day-to-day running of this week ahead, then check out the earlier section called Day-to-Day Forecast, which really gives you an idea of what the energies are, how to use them, and I sort of pace you through the week. In this particular short forecast, what I'm looking at in particular is how you, the Scorpio, whether you have Scorpio Ascendant, Scorpio Sun, or Scorpio Moon, how that Scorpio energy is best being expressed, what the opportunities are for you, what you might want to pay a bit of attention to. And it's interesting because, we've been in a really strong Scorpio time. At the moment that, today, right now, as I'm recording this, we've just had the new moon in Scorpio. Like, it doesn't get much more Scorpio than that. And as we start this week ahead, the moon by that time will have actually moved into the sign of Sagittarius. But, I note that Mercury and Venus, who've recently been in Scorpio, have already moved away. So we're coming, even though the sun is still in Scorpio, as we get into this week ahead of the 4th of November, I really note that some of the fixedness of the Scorpio energy, the fixed emotions, the fixed water, which can stagnate and can sometimes get really stuck. What I know is things are starting to move, and there is an enormous amount of fire energy in this week ahead. And the fire energy, I think, is lighting us up, warming us up, helping to get rid of some of that swampiness, that kind of seething area, that stagnant area that can build up with the Scorpio emotions, and it's getting things moving. So I think you'll be quite impressed because, one of your planetary rulers is Mars, and Mars is actually changing signs here on the day that we start this forecast on the 4th. So I think that's where I want to start today's session. So on Monday the 4th, your ruling planet, or one of your ruling planets, Mars, is changing sign and going into the sign of Leo. And it's right at the top of your chart, really in a place of your career, in a place of standing firm about who you are, being seen for who you are, being proud of who you are, because Leo is a very proud sign, and preparing to do quite a bit of hard work and to defend yourself in your work, and to just kind of dazzle. I get the real sense that there's a lot of effort that you can put into life, and that life is about to reward you for it. Now, I do also want to say something else. Mars is going to go direct, and he's going to move into the sign of Leo, but he doesn't really move that far in, but he's slowly kind of going up. Mars is getting ready to go retrograde. And so early December, he's going to go retrograde back into the sign of Cancer. And he's not going to start moving forwards again until the end of February. So what you're building here in terms of your career, think of it in terms of having a quick look at the possibilities over the next month. You've got a good month in the sign of Leo. So you're having a good look, really feeling it out, really starting to draw out your ideas, starting to take small actions towards it. But just be aware that you're going to go into a bit of a review pattern from early December right the way through to right the way through to the end of February. Now, during this time, where Mars is going is it back into a place of adventure, back into a place of learning, back into a place of beliefs, religion, spirituality, politics, broadcasting, writing. So you might choose right off the bat to start scoping out some of these big projects you want to do, and then go back during this retrograde time and think, okay, well, what learning do I need to backfill? Who might I want to have an adventure with? How can I be adventurous with this project? How can my project expand my expectations on politics and philosophy and spirituality and blah, 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 blah. And it all goes from there. How can I broadcast about this? How can I get things moving in a significant way? You know, once this energy comes back into Leo and really gets past the retrograde point, we're really talking mid-June, things will really come back and you'll see the sum total movement of your career. I really think that this is kind of like a starting point to move you forwards exponentially, and that mid-June looks like a time when things are really going to come forwards for you. But there's a little bit of preparation time. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. There are also 6 planetary changes, like big planetary changes, and the North, including the North Node, that are going to be taking place between now and mid-June, or the end. Well, most of it's underway by mid-June. So there's going to be some significant changes. So I really think this is going to be helpful for you. So your career is about to come online. And when you think about your career in terms of next year in 2025, things are going to move forwards. Now, right now, Mercury is here in your 2nd house. He's coming in on the 2nd of November. So as I'm recording it, he's just about to make his transition. But Mercury is going to be here all the way throughout this week ahead. Mercury is going to be in Sagittarius and for quite some time, but is going to go retrograde on the 25th and go back to an earlier position in Sagittarius. What this is suggesting to me is the fiery energy is moving you on in terms of your earnings, in terms of your value. What is your unique selling point? What are you known for? What do people absolutely want to invest in you for? You're really getting to the core of it. I see that you're going to be feeling into it, getting excited, talking about it, really starting to generate ideas. And the Mercury and the Mars energy is going to work beautifully with the North Node. Really feels like you're doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And that throughout December, you're going to be, like November to December, during the retrograde, you're going to be really finding out what you need to learn to make it work. Venus here as well. She's almost like the opening act. She has come in and kind of awoken you about your value, and got you thinking in terms of, well, I do want to earn a bit of money. I am very talented. People really like me and they like me for this. She's given you a bit more confidence. She's really helped to finesse you, and to help you step forwards. Now, you've also got the North Node and Chiron. Now, Chiron in the 6th can sometimes help us, can also be a giant pain in the backside. You may well have had to manage your health quite strongly, and it may have felt like your life has got completely out of balance on quite a few moments in time. But the 6th house is really here to show you what you've learned over the last 5 or 6 years with Chiron. And in the North Node being here for 16 months has really shown you that for all of your ideas about expanding, earning more, being more, having a greater output, the North Node is also saying, but it has to work in your life. And if it's taking you out of balance, it's not the right idea for you. So again, there's this sort of balance, but there are these energies working together, so you're encouraged to build your career, but in a way that is going to work with your life. And you might get intel, sort of cosmic intel, intuitive intel, sort of giving you the advice and the steps to take to make your life grow to accommodate the shifts you're going through in your career. But it's just really important to just be aware of the possibilities right now, because they are going to come about right now, get you excited, and then they'll ease off and then come back in, So I do think that coming back in time is early January and also mid-June of next year. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the Venus square Neptune. Venus is here in your second house, which also has to do with valuing yourself and your self-esteem, growing it, helping you to feel stronger in yourself. Now, Neptune for a long time has been in your fifth house about your creativity. And that's actually kind of useful. Neptune here is really helping you come up with much, so many more ideas in terms of what you want to be creative about. You've also had Saturn here for quite some time, giving you some structural points about what you want to create. Suffice to say, you've explored the possibility of being more and feeling more and lighting up your path because you just love what you do. But there is a bit of a tension here. This square that's taking place between the 3rd of November and the 17th of November between Venus and Neptune is maybe getting you questioning yourself. Now, for a lot of other people and a lot of other placements, as I've gone through these, I've really seen that the questions have been between you and somebody else. But here in this placement, I really get that, you might be doubting yourself. You might be in a place of disillusionment. You might be othering yourself, judging your creations, and not seeing the connection between your creations and your self-esteem. It might be that your creations that you've got in your head, in your heart, are so idealistic that you can't really bring them to life and can't really manifest them here. And then you interpret that as, oh, I'm obviously not good enough. My idea is so good, but I'm not really the right person to do that. So what I would say in this week ahead, and definitely until the 17th of November, try and find a calm balance between these two expressions. Yes, you've got lots of idealistic ideas. You've got lots of creativity, and things can flow and it's almost like there's no boundaries on what you could do. And then, during this week, there's almost a sadness, a feeling of not being good enough because you can't quite meet those ideals. So what I would recommend is, as you get conscious of these thoughts that you're having about yourself, ask yourself, how can I express my ideals but actually manifest them and make them real? What might I need to change about my ideals to be able to make them real and bring them into the world? This house is definitely a house of birthing, and Neptune here can make it very difficult to bring things earth side. So, you might want to ask yourself, how can I trust myself more? How can I find new ways and new solutions right now? How can I lovingly understand my capability? Anything that can boost your self-esteem would be really, really beneficial right now. The final thing that I want to say as well is just that as we're coming into this week ahead, the moon starts off in a waxing crescent phase up until the 7th of November. That's the time to be really gentle with the things that you're trying to shift, and your ideas, the things you're trying to create. Recognize that every seed needs a little while to settle. It needs to settle before it can even start to really root, and open up. It's a really sort of vulnerable time in your ideas. So have your ideas, think about them, talk about them, share them, write them, journal them, dream about them. And it's not really until the 7th comes along, when we go into the first quarter, when you might want to start to take some real direct actions. So there you go. I hope that's helpful for you. I have recently spoken about the Mars and Pluto opposition, and they are very, very exact in their opposition. I really did speak about that last week in last week's forecast, and there will be another video about Mars and Pluto in their opposition coming next week. So that's not off the menu, but I wanted to focus on what is actually really working right now. So I hope that's helpful, Scorpio. Take care, and catch up with you real soon. If I can be of any help, sort of unpicking your chart for you and helping you find a new understanding of it, then just look down into the video details, the description, and you'll find ways to connect. All you have to do is just invite me to work with you, click on a link and we can take it from there. So there you go. Take care, Scorpio. Catch you another time. Have a great week ahead. Bye for now. Hey there, Sagittarius. So this is an interesting week ahead because you've got 2 planets coming through your sign. I say your sign, it's also mine. I've got my sun in Sagittarius. This is a forecast taking you from Monday the 4th of November right the way through to Sunday the 10th. If you want to know about the nitty gritty, then I do really recommend that you check out the day-to-day forecast earlier in this video, where I really piece the whole week together and give you an idea as to what activities would really suit each days. But in this particular short forecast, what I'm really wanting to get excited about and convey to you is a lot about the sort of new fire energy that is coming in right now. It's very, very strong. And also talk about the Venus square to Neptune that's going on this week, and also to sort of appreciate the path of the moon in this week ahead. It starts off in the sign of Sagittarius. By the end of the week, it's in the sign of Pisces. It's in a wax. In fact, I'll start here. I'm recording this on the 1st of November, just after we've had the new moon. And the new moon is sort of happening here in this very dreamy place, this place of making everything that's unconscious and bringing it into your reality. Very, very imaginative and intuitive, and also very private. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So at the start of this week, the moon is just into the sign of Sagittarius. And Mercury will have moved into Sagittarius on the 2nd. We've already got Venus in Sagittarius. So we've got the moon, we've got Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius, really warming you up. Traditionally, when the sun is in Scorpio, which it is this week, we tend to be quite sleepy. It's not our time to rise and shine. That really happens when the sun comes over our ascendant, and when that happens, it feels like, right, well, I'm back in my game, let's get cracking. So it's interesting, this is traditionally a sleepy time for you. However, Mercury and the moon and Venus, all personal planets, are absolutely bringing off this new fire, this new interest, this new wake up energy. And Mars on the 4th, literally Monday the 4th, as we start this forecast, is just going into the sign of Leo, another fire sign. And this part of your chart is absolutely about having the adventure, having the bigger view on life, really wanting to see life by a new context. It's exciting. You want to broadcast about it, write about it, share it. You want to learn more. It takes you to new places in your mind, in your spiritual being, and actually physically too. It can help us wander, and I wonder what you might want to create with it. Now, there are also these 2 stooges here. I shouldn't say stooges, because they're both, I think every sort of planetary or cosmic energy that I use in these charts all have a positive and a negative, according to how you see them. But the North Node going through Aries, we've done this for quite some time now. We are coming to the end of it. It moves and shifts at the end of January 2025. We're coming to the end of this Aries story. And I think this North Node in Aries has really helped us stand into the individual. It's given us a taster that, whilst we need to do things for other people or take care of people, or at least care for people around us and try to collaborate, when we collaborate but don't put enough into ourselves, it all goes wrong. We go into a place of sacrifice over and over and over again. We're sacrificing our energy, and it's kind of vampiric. We allow ourselves to be kind of sucked out of all our vital juices. And yet this North Node in Aries is really showing us how we could choose to enjoy being ourselves. Where this is in our chart is absolutely in a place of creation and passion, intimacy. It's quite sexual, but it is also about what lights you up. Like, how do you have fun? How would you like to spend your life? If you could spend the rest of your life doing what you love doing, what would you do right now? How would that go for you? So yeah, the North Node might be a bit of a stooge. It might have felt a bit painful while we've been recognizing this, but it's also very useful, also in a fire sign. And then Chiron in Aries, again in the 5th house. You know, we've maybe felt a bit vulnerable about the things that we're intimate with, you know, like the things that we love doing. We may well have had a knock in our confidence, and we've been called to express ourselves at a much deeper level. So we've got these energies all working together. And do you know what I think these are representing? That your brand is coming out. You're getting really clear about who you are as an individual, who you are in your body. It feels like you're working with your body beautifully again. That in and of itself is encouraging you to push past your vulnerabilities about what you're creating, and to get excited about life again, and to get excited about doing it on your own if you have to. And then Mars up here is telling you to take the most adventurous path. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to do that, you know, because, you know, I don't want to mess up your life. And this is just, you know, a serving suggestion. But, you know, how cool could life be if you were to choose maybe the path of least resistance? I say that quite, you know, positively, because actually the things we love doing, there isn't any resistance on, but the resistance that does come up is the resistance that we create for ourselves, where we say, oh, I can't do that, you know, because I've got to work hard, I've got to pay my mortgage, I've got to do this, got to do that. So I actually mean like the path of least resistance, like the thing that you're so good at doing and love doing, that's maybe what you might choose to do. And deal with the resistance of why you can't do it that's coming up from you. But, you know, right now, I think there is this invitation to explore what you love because of who you are, and to go on the adventure of it. And I wonder where that's going to take you. You know, I really, really do. And, you know, one of the cool things is that Jupiter in Gemini right now, your ruling planet is in the 7th house. There's a ton of people around you that want to come on this journey with you, that are actually there supporting you. I mean, you've actually got a really good support system around you. Loads of people going, yay, you. So this is all really, really good. Now, one last thing I want to share with you, and that is, you know, we've got Venus and Neptune in a square with each other. It's not very comfortable. They are both harmonics of love and creativity. Venus being very much about loving yourself and like physical love and connection, emotional connection with other people, you know, and how you relate to them. She's creative. She's like a terrestrial love, an earthbound love. And then Neptune is an idealistic, spiritual, expansive, creative kind of love, unconditional love maybe, but it's not terrestrial. And what I really get here is there is a fight to bring the ideals that you want to bring into your relationships and want to bring to yourself. There are really high ideals going on right now. And actually, you know, the question I want to ask yourself is, where are your ideals getting in the way of connection? Where are your sort of over big expectations and ideals that you might have on people around you? Where are they stopping the intimacy? So I don't know how comfortable that feels to answer that question. You might also ask yourself, where are my ideals, my great ideals of how I should be? How are they affecting my connection to myself? Because, you know, one thing I've noticed over and over, and then I forget about it until I remind myself about it a bit later. And that is where I've had years actually of having these really high ideals and expectations on myself. And the funny thing is when you keep expecting, like when you put yourself higher than is humanly possible, and you're trying to live your life, and the back chatter of what you're saying to yourself, your body is listening to it the whole time. So if you're saying, oh, you're not as slim as you should be, oh, you're getting older, oh, blah, 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 you didn't do that very well, oh, you know, all these little complaints you're making about yourself because you're holding yourself and your body image, and, you know, and I say body image because like Venus right now is in the 1st house, all about the body. You know, you're holding all these really high ideals for yourself. Your body is just getting disappointment. And before you realize it, you've broken up with your body. You know, your body can't take it in anymore. You know, it feels dejected. It feels disconnected. So one other thing you might choose to do in this week ahead is to recognize where maybe you're not trusting the people in your life, or you're not trusting your body anymore, and make amends. You know, maybe apologize, or find a way to connect to people around you and say, look, sorry, I realize I've been holding you to these really high expectations. I don't even meet my own expectations. I'm such a doofus. And I'm so sorry that I'm putting my high ideals onto our relationship. And to say that to your body, say that to yourself. Because when you're doing that, you're othering yourself. You're saying, you're wagging your finger. You're not good enough. It's not very loving. And here's the thing with these two planets, the way to transform that gap between them both is to love it back together, to love yourself and to love yourself where you are. Because if you can't love yourself where you are, you're not going to be able to love yourself where you're not. You know, but in your mind you might be. So that's, I think my final comment really. So I hope that's helpful to you, Sagittarius, in navigating this week ahead. I actually think there's some exciting things going on. You know, Mercury will go retrograde into Scorpio, and you'll get a chance to rebrand yourself another time. You know, it's like, get going on all the exciting stuff now, and know that there will be a reflection point, and you'll probably go back into yourself and think, okay, well, how is that working? What do I like about it? How does it sit? Does it feel really authentic to me? And then you'll be making some changes. And by mid-January, those sort of rebrands that you've been doing for yourself will be working really beautifully. Now with Mars, Mars is going to go retrograde in December and won't go forwards again in Cancer until the end of February. But by mid-June, which sounds like a long way away, Mars will be back and will be coming into a trine with Chiron. And so whatever you're trying to heal about yourself in terms of being more adventurous and pushing yourself down a path, maybe not very well traveled, maybe a bit risky, but feels like it's going to light you up, by mid-June, you could be really flying. And that sort of that inconvenient truth about your sort of insecurities, it can be completely healed by that time. So there you go. I hope that's helpful to you. Have a great week ahead. If I can be of any help unpacking your chart, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description field. All you need to do is invite me to work with you. There's a link there. You just click on the right link for you, and it's as easy as that. So take care. Speak to you soon. And let's see what happens. Hey there, Capricorn. So this is your week ahead, taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. So this is a forecast. Now, if you want a day-to-day breakdown of all the energies, and why not, because in the day-to-day forecast, I will break it down and give you suggestions of how you might choose to use the energy, how your actions might sort of match the energy. Then check out the earlier section called day-to-day forecasts. But in this short forecast, what I'm looking at is the overall big energies I see coming up in this week ahead, the big themes. And, one of them that I really see and really love and I'm very excited about is the fire trine that's going on. And it's really with personal planets. We've got, we start the week with the moon in Sagittarius, just here. On the 2nd, literally just before this week starts, we've also got Mercury coming into the sign of Sagittarius. We've already got Venus in the sign of Sagittarius. And on the 4th of November, which is, the first day of this forecast, Mars changes signs and goes into the sign of Leo. So we really are in a very sort of like personal, fiery time, like very recently, we've had a lot of energy in the water signs. So, Mars was in Cancer, Mercury was in Scorpio, the Sun is currently in Scorpio. We've got Neptune and Saturn also in Pisces. So we've had this very sort of like watery energy, and I think it's done its trick. It's got us feeling emotional. It's got us more intuitive. maybe more in touch with energies around us, maybe things that are beyond our usual ways of seeing things, slightly out of our perception. I think it's also got us thinking about our ancestry, like the 4th, the 8th and the 12th houses. I always consider them to be a bit watery in nature. They're very private, where we're mulling things over. And of course, the sun is still in the sign of Scorpio, which is fixed water, which tends to get a little bit stagnant. And so I really see this sort of very fiery picture for the week ahead as heating things up, getting things moving, clarifying, purifying, bringing light and warmth to the situation. So for instance, Venus, Venus in the sign of Sagittarius is absolutely creating a warmer scenario in terms of how you're relating to people. She's really wanting to warm up your relationships, bring a bit of fun, bring a bit of inspiration, bring a bit of creativity into your relationships. And also, she doesn't just work on a relationship level, in the 12th house area of your chart, she's warming up that feeling of compassion and forgiveness that you might have for yourself. She's helping you realize that you really do your best. She's helping you have a moment of kindness to yourself, to give yourself a bit of a break, which I think is really helpful. And she might also help you to pinpoint, maybe where you've been a bit hard on yourself. And she might not be doing it, but she might be showing, like you might have somebody showing up in your life that just manages to pierce through your defenses just to show you or illustrate where you're being a bit hard on yourself. So she might show up as somebody in your life. We've also got Mercury, in this area as well, which is going to really in this week ahead facilitate how you are in your mind. How are you using your intuition in a helpful way? Now it's in the sign of Sagittarius. It's like, how can you be inspirational? How can you inspire yourself? How can you have creative and exciting and maybe slightly straightforward and tactless conversations with yourself? Mercury in Sagittarius is kind of interesting. It's not really comfortable. The Mercury energy is not comfortable in Sagittarius because Sagittarius like shoots high and wide, it isn't very detailed. It's full of context. So, it's almost like you can have these long rambling conversations with yourself and understand yourself. It's almost like you're bringing your sort of grandpa or, I don't know, like somebody you might have some affection for into your life, to have one of these kind of conversations that goes nowhere, and so I would recommend actually, because I think Capricorns can be quite private. Why don't you invite somebody over in this week ahead, somebody that you trust, maybe someone you haven't seen for a while, maybe someone that knows a lot of your old tricks and secrets, and just bring them over for like one of these deep and meaningfuls. Like the planets are really lined up for you to gently have these long and wandering conversations, which does sound very different to your normal energy, but hey, I really see it as being helpful, and I'll explain why as we go through this. So Mars coming into this house is quite interesting as well. Like the 8th house is associated with shared assets, and also transformations and all those subjects that we find it a bit difficult to talk about, like sex. Actually, I don't find that difficult to talk about at all, but like birth, life, death, and the cycle of things, the sort of transformations we're going on, the rites of passage that we go on, and where are we stunted in our development? It might have to do with blame, shame, guilt, or anger, or resentment, because the 8th house also shares other people's values about you. Not just your shared assets that you have together, but there are shared values. You've all got expectations on each other. And so Mars coming into here in the sign of Leo is going to be proudly looking around and maybe kicking up a bit of a defense and a bit of a stink if he feels that, somebody's expectations are pushing you down. So there are going to be some things to think about for sure. So Mars is kind of stirring those cosmic waters a little bit and and he's proud and he's quite fervent, and he really wants you to start moving again and start going through, completing on your rites of passage. Like, are you stuck in a particular stage in your development? Do you need to move beyond that? Mars is going to get that moving. So it's good that you've got Mercury and Venus here in the 12th, gently supporting you, encouraging you to connect. Now, you won't be a stranger to this energy here. Chiron has been in your 4th for what seems like forever and a day now. I think that's dramatic, but maybe from 2017, 2018, by the time he fully ingressed into Aries. And then we've also got the North Node going through Aries. It's been there 16 months now, 17 months. There's a lot of change going on in terms of your attitudes about home, and possibly the historic home, like your childhood family, your childhood home, all of the behaviors that were set in place because of the things that happened in your childhood. And there might be some pain and vulnerability that has been coming up in recent years about your home, and also the home that you're creating now. So, this is home, people we're related to, and we have shared values with, and people who might actually quite rudely put a lot on us, guilt throwing and guilt catching, and how we are maybe getting ready to look at it all now. And then this gentle Mercury and also Venus energy, allowing you to maybe talk and muse about it, not take it too personally. I think that's the key. And of course, the Saturn nature, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, is so serious, and these are serious issues, like your behavior, the expectations and relationships that you have with your sort of ancestry and what's going on in your unconscious mind. Yes, it's serious stuff. And yet the fire energy is adding warmth. It's adding light. It doesn't want it to be stagnant anymore. It doesn't want it to be hidden anymore. It's encouraging you to bring it out, but it also to bring it into the light of day in a kind of interesting way, in a fun way, in a way that's going to add to truth and growth and vitality, not in a way that's going to depress you or undermine you, but it wants to get things moving, like dark to light. It's bringing the lightness out after a time of darkness and these patterns being hidden. I really get that what's going on for you right now is a purification. And that feels really cool. Now, this is great timing as well. And this is the bit that I really want to sort of recognize is, Venus is going to cross over this line on the 11th of November. So Venus will come into the sign of Capricorn very soon. And when she comes into the sign of Capricorn, it's like, wakey, wakey. It feels like things start to get moving. I always think that when the personal planets, in particular, the Sun, Mercury and Venus, because they're always kind of following each other, when these three have crossed over this line, this ascendant line, I really think that you start to come into your own again, and it feels like a new start. It feels like a new year ahead for you. And so Venus is very soon going to be bringing a touch of glamour, a touch of class, a touch of refinement back to you, and a feeling of self-love. Now, Mercury is not going to be coming over this way until, later on in January, but the Sun is going to come over here around, I think the 22nd of December, maybe the 23rd of December this year. So, you're coming into this time of gradual awakening. You're coming back into your power, back into the time that a lot of people tend to find really hard, in the Northern Hemisphere, like the longest night of the year. But that is your time, out of the darkness. It seems that you can come back into your light on your own. So yeah, whatever is going on now, if you can not take it personally, find the fire in it, find the light and the truth and the vitality and maybe the youthfulness of it, I think it will invigorate you. So, as you're starting this ingress into Capricorn, with Venus on the 11th of November, and slowly but surely that sun will come here just before Christmas, things are waking up. To me, it just feels like, to me, it feels like you've already gone through the darkest night of the year, and actually it's this week, the longest night of the year. It feels like this is the week. And instead of having a nightmare, you're having this kind of interactive dream, almost like a choose your own adventure dream. Do you remember those books, Choose Your Own Adventure, where you'd read a few pages and then it would say, you know, if you're going to go into the pyramid, go to page 48. If you choose to go on a wild ride with an Egyptian, go to page 45. And then, you know, your story changes because of your choices. I think you are coming into this time in this week ahead of deep choices. You know, and these choices are going to determine your story. So, you know, you're not in fate's hand by any stretch. You know, this is in your hands. And the more you're able to embrace the fire, embrace the warmth, the light, and the feeling of things stirring, again, not taking it too personally, but kind of enjoying the humor of it. I really think the humor of it is important because, you know, Sagittarius is humorous. I have to say there are loads of real, like, strong Capricorn comedians because of the dryness, and Aries as well, not fearing to kind of tell it like it is. You know, they can also be funny. So, like, see the fun side of it, and that will really get you through. The other thing I want to talk about, so yeah, I mean, actually, before I go on, this to me feels like quite a personal week, you know, where you are making your own choices and making decisions, you know, that are going to help you move beyond. You know, I think this is all a really sort of like deep transitional phase. So the last thing I do want to look at is Venus. She's so close to crossing over here, and then she's in a square to Neptune, which is so close to crossing over into the 4th house. Now, this square is a little bit uncomfortable. Both Venus and Neptune are known as octaves of love, or there's another word for it, harmonics of love, planets of love. You know, Venus is very physical, and very terrestrial. You know, she shows our connections with other people. Neptune is very idealistic, very spiritual, unconditional, and also unboundaried, and not very responsible, actually. So, you know, because Neptune kind of does his own thing. And of course, you know, from an earthbound perception, you know, we like to know definites of times and places and things like that. You know, you could say that Neptune is the timeless, boundaryless creation and unconditional love, which is oneness. So there's a bit of an internal battle going on for you in terms of Venus and Neptune. And, you know, Venus in your 12th house is encouraging you to sort of have faith in yourself and to be deeply intuitive, to practice intuition and kind of quiet, forgiving care for the people around you, you know, to just be kind. You know, she's helping you be kind and generous, and kind of low key about things. And yet Neptune here is really, to me, Neptune feels a little bit demanding in your 3rd house. It almost feels, especially in this square, it almost feels like, yes, you want to be low key and easygoing and, you know, nicely connected to people. And yet Neptune is really asking you to be high end, unconditional love, high functioning, deeply creative in your community, and to really be around people like that. Not necessarily reliable people, not necessarily people that are very practical and full of common sense, but people who are highly idealistic. And to me, it almost feels like you're falling out with people that are idealistic in your local environment. It just feels like, you know, anyone that is on their high horse, anyone that's away with fairies, anyone whose reality isn't also grounded in compassion for everyone, not just compassion for who you like, but compassion for everyone. Anyone whose reality is not grounded in loving everyone. You know, why would you want to hang with people like that? Why would you want to have people like that in your life? And you might find, given that this is quite a sort of dreamy, but also deep acting week ahead, you might find that there's a change that you need to make. You might find that the people who are highly idealistic just aren't going to be part of your future anymore. You know, they just feel like the wrong kind of energy for you. But, what I would ask is, where are your ideals creating a boundary between you and other people? Where are your high expectations creating difficulty in connections? And, similarly, where are other people's high expectations of you just turning you cold? Anywhere where there's this high level of ideals, there's guilt, there's shame, there's blame, and there's judgment. So anywhere where you're holding high ideals for anyone else, you're also judging them, possibly blaming them, possibly shaming them. Even if it's unspoken, it's felt at some level. So, I think there is, a lot of etheric energy around at the moment, where people are getting a lot more intuitive. They know if people really like them or not. So that's just a little nudge. I also think a higher meaning of this is that, anywhere where we're doubting others, at some level, we're doubting ourselves. Because if we were so secure in ourselves, we just wouldn't need others to meet our needs. We would have already met them, So anywhere where you're feeling judged or idealistic or disconnected from people in this week ahead, just see it as, where am I not being loved to myself? How can I love myself more? How can I integrate love? How can I I don't know, so many questions about love, but don't stop is my advice. So to sum it all up, really, what I would say is this is a week ahead where there is this kind of burning need to purify some of your internal feelings about relationships, about burdens and expectations and ideals, and how to get back into a more practical way of being. And I really do see that you're going to do that. So have a great week ahead, Capricorn. If I can help you unpack your chart at a deeper level, just get in touch. All of my details are below. And, it's really easy. If you want to invite me to work with you, then all you need to do is click on a link and it will take you to my online diary. So simple as that. So have a good one and hopefully connect with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Aquarius. So this is the forecast taking you from the 4th of November right the way through to the 10th of November. That's Monday to Sunday. This is quite an interesting week. There are some really strong patterns that I'm going to be talking about in this forecast, in particular, the level of the fire energies, and also the Venus square Neptune energy, and a little bit about what it's like, in the waning crescent phase right the way through to the first quarter phase of the moon. But if you want more of a day-by-day forecast telling you or sharing with you some of the energies and maybe some suggestions on how you might want to manage the energies as they come up, then check out an earlier chapter called Day-to-Day Forecast, where you'll find all of that there. But for this one, this is really about the Aquarius energy. And I don't know if you've got your Aquarius sun, a moon, or ascendant, but this is for you. So, really where I want to start is like this idea of the return of truth, because there's a lot of personal planets in the fire energies. So we start with, literally as we start the week, the moon, which is whose journey is mapped in green here, starts in the sign of Sagittarius. Venus is already in the sign of Sagittarius. And on the 2nd of November, Mercury has just entered into the sign of Sagittarius. So there's three signs at the start of the week three planets in the sign of Sagittarius. On the 4th of November, Monday the 4th, Mars has gone into the sign of Leo. It's another fire sign. So we've got the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. 4 out of the 5, the other personal that we would count would be the sun. So this is a very, very strong fire energy for the week ahead. We have also got these long-term residents of the sign of Aries. The North Node has been here for 16, 17 months now. It will be departing at the end of January, going into Pisces. And we've also had Chiron going through the sign of Aries since, I think, 2017, and then the full ingress was in 2018. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. And this is very much about your relationship to belonging somewhere and the learning that you get when you belong somewhere, like the knowledge that you have. It's like, I guess, the identity of your roots at some level, so Chiron here is representing that maybe there's been some pain about your identity of belonging in a certain community. and that's one of the things that you'll have been working on for the last 5 years. The North Node having come through here also is really asking you to come to terms with how you can be independent within your community. It's in the sign of Aries. How can you come more into your sovereignty? How can you be you whilst you're with other people is such a big question, isn't it? So yeah, there's this kind of big fiery energy, like a big old trine between all the personals. Now, Mars going into Leo is awakening the sense of partnership. And often when Mars goes into the 7th or the 4th, we find that people around us seem a bit extra stroppy, like they're suddenly irritated and fed up. So sometimes, Mars can show as an angry person in our life. But I also think it's where you might be holding on to something and, seeing it in other people. Often the things we can't see in ourselves, we just see straight in the other people. So, if you're feeling slightly, if you're noticing that the people around you seem really kind of raring to go and wanting to get stuff done, and also a bit irritable, maybe a bit nitpicky, then consider, okay, where am I a bit tired? Where am I a bit over exacting right now? Where am I being a little bit too much? However, Mars is also a sexual planet. And so, Mars coming into the 7th can also show that it's time to, enjoy your body more with other people, I say other people, like you're going to have a flipping great big, like love fest. But you might want to be more physical with your partner. You might want to, enjoy being in your body, with your loved one, go dancing, or I don't know, any kind of stuff. I mean, you've got an imagination, so so this can actually provide quite a bit of guidance and energy in terms of your relationships. Maybe you've got some goals together that you want to achieve, so it's giving you that confidence and that direction, which is really helpful. And I think Mars here is in a trine to the North Node. Maybe in resolving things with your partners or partner, it feels like you belong more in your community. And maybe as you feel a bit more grounded in your community in terms of how can you be yourself whilst around other people, maybe that has a knock-on effect with your relationships. So these are all working together, which I really like. Now, Mercury up here in the 11th is bringing a sense of fun and a lot of conversation, a lot of hilarity, a lot of sort of invitations to meet with people outside of your normal band of happy friends. Maybe your working connections, your networks and things like that. It could also be the friends of your partner, and the way they have fun, so there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of connections available to you in this week ahead. And also with Venus here as well, there's this sense that there's a lot of harmony that can come from being around people who are related to your partner or related to your best friend, and a feeling that you are more connected and into a greater sense of belonging with other people, other networks. There is an expansion, which I think is really, really quite good for you right now. So I think these energies are working really beautifully. And, Mercury is going to go retrograde at the end of November. And will, that's just until early December. So there's going to be a little bit of thinking around here. You might change your tune. You might want to meet with different groups of people and kind of toggle it a little bit. Leo here coming into this, like giving you a lot more direction in your relationships. Leo is going to go retrograde in December, come back into Cancer, and he won't be back into Leo until I think late spring. But there is this sort of fire in your belly and this sort of new direction with your relationships. However you're reviewing them during the retrograde time, I really see that as Mars comes back in, in late spring, I just think you're getting a lot more demonstrative. You're getting a lot clearer about getting your needs met, because when you can meet your needs, it's easy to meet other people's needs and vice versa. So I really think you're coming into a time of Yeah, more pizzazz, more strength. To me, it feels like you're really showing up with other people right now, which is quite interesting because Aquarians can be quite aloof, with the strong Uranus energy, and also with the Saturn energy. You can choose to feel quite separate if you wanted to. You really could. So it's kind of interesting. Talking around separation and disconnection, there's also this Venus and Neptune square, which is particularly pernicious and a little bit difficult to navigate. Venus is all about your relatedness to other people, and right now she's really showing up that you're able to relate to people further afield from your usual bank of friends, and maybe you've got friends that you've got a joint vision with, a joint philosophy, a joint spirituality, or something like that. It really feels like you're being moved by your friendships, and that they're quite powerful. And yet there's Neptune as well, and Neptune at the end of the second house, I always think of that as being learning something about our self-esteem. You've also got Saturn in this house as well, and here we take some very tough lessons when Saturn and Neptune are in the second house. It's a bit like considering, the available resources to you, how much you earn, and then saying, oh, I am worth this. It's hard when you see your earnings as being a physical representation of your value in life. And Neptune here can really distort things about how valuable you feel that you are, or how much value you bring the world. Neptune can also slightly fudge any conversations that you might have with yourself. Neptune is a bit woolly at times. Neptune is unconditional and creative and unboundaried and this, that, and the other. But with Neptune, anything goes. And so it's very difficult to get a clear view of who you are and how you're being. So what I would say is one of the things with Neptune is Neptune has really high expectations. And when high expectations, high creative and spiritual expectations are matched with Venus wanting to connect, but it's not matched harmoniously, I think, you might be being a bit hard on yourself, having really high expectations for your behaviors and also for how you think other people should behave as well. When the reality is actually right now, the most important thing is to sort of enjoy yourself, connect with others, and to feel kind of grounded in your connections. So this is an interesting and slightly difficult square to navigate. What I would recommend is you ask yourself, how are my ideals getting in the way of my connections with people? And also, how are other people's ideals and idealized ideas about me, how are they affecting me and my desire to connect with that person? So I get the feeling that there's an energy of sacrifice, and also possibly an energy of codependency, where nobody is truly free. It just feels like everyone's life is premised on somebody else doing something for them. So I don't know how you're going to get your needs met, but it's really important that you recognize how you can meet your own needs and not translate it that if other people aren't paying you a lot of money, then somehow you're not worth it. Or, if I'm trying to think of an example now, and I just can't off the top of my head think. Sorry. So, just consider, how are you kind of bullying yourself and devaluing yourself by having these really high ideals. So the more you can work on that, the easier life will get. And, this is a time when you are coming into your social prime, I would say. Last thoughts, I think, this is a very sort of delicate moon phase until the 7th of November. Around the 7th, the moon comes into this first house, and it feels like the 7th is the time when you start to take action, take small steps forwards. I do think the first part of the week is slightly obscured, maybe because there's probably going to be a massive political shit show going on. Sorry to laugh nervously, but to me it feels like a lot of countries around the world are kind of holding out and wondering what's going on with America. And a lot of Americans might not be making full decisions right now because they're waiting to get the results of what's going on. You know, to me, it just feels like everyone's waiting for something to drop. And so, yeah, between the 4th and the 7th, if you can just be kind and gentle with yourself, enjoy the connections you have, don't put too high expectations on yourself or other people, and just recognize that everything is a new step. And then from the 7th, as you come more into your power and your patterns, just start doubling down on your actions and start taking them with a bit more fervor. So there you go. I hope that's helpful for you in understanding some of the overall themes for this week ahead, Aquarius. If I can be of any further help, then just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description box. I can help you unpack your chart in a whole myriad of ways. All you need to do is just invite me to work with you. So it's as simple as that. Lots and lots of love to you. Have a great week ahead and hopefully catch you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Pisces. So this is the forecast taking you from Monday, the 4th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 10th of November. This is an interesting week. I think in many respects, lots of people have been waiting for this week to see what drops, almost as if the whole world, for different reasons, is poised to see what's going on in America. Almost as if once we know, we'll be able to take action and know what our next step is. And I'm really here to say, especially seeing as Pisces, the Pisces energy really observes a lot, and sometimes takes a while to come into their own sense of who they are. What I really want you to know is it's important to keep moving irrespective of what's going on around you. Use your amazing levels of intuition to just tune in, like, life, show me something great right now. Intuition, show me my next step right now. And literally just keep moving step by step by step. Anyway, aside from that, in this forecast, what I'm going to do is talk about the overall feelings that are going on, like the return of truth, which I see as the abundance of fire that we've got in this week ahead. We've also got this Venus square Neptune energy that is very strong and a little bit pernicious, a little bit difficult to work through. And we're also in a waxing crescent phase until the 7th, which is very, very gentle. Take a little step forwards and don't put too much pressure on yourself. Literally just do what you have to do and then take a break. Do what you need to do and don't overdo things. But from the 7th, in fact, I would say, actually, most likely, you might actually want to wait until the 10th when the moon goes into Pisces. I think that's actually the time when you start to, move forwards. So maybe I'm right that you do tend to just take a little bit longer to reflect on what's going on around you before you get moving. But anyway, this is quite a reflective week. And yet there are some very big energies in the fire signs, which isn't so reflective and more it's inspiring and kind of moving and warming things up and changing our set point. I think the fire energy is about truth and growth and vitality. I also think it's a bit like a purification energy, like the fire is if we go back to if what we've been told about history is true, that fire changed everything, because we could cook things and, it gave us other opportunities, then fire here is giving you opportunities to evolve as well. So what I want to do is just take a little step back as to what was preceding this week. So we did have Mercury last week in the sign of Scorpio. The sun is actually in the sign of Scorpio right now. We've also just had Mars in the sign of Cancer, and we've currently got Neptune and Saturn in water signs. So it was a very, very watery chart this time last week. And actually what's happened on the 4th, on Monday the 4th, Mars goes into the sign of Leo. On the 2nd, Mercury comes into the sign of Sagittarius. Venus is already in the sign of Sagittarius. As we start the week, the moon's in Sagittarius. So there's 3 personal energies in the sign of Sagittarius and 1 in the sign of Leo. And then we've got the North Node, and we've also got Chiron in the sign of Aries. And, you know, they've been there for a long time and they are quite painful in many respects. They are really doing a number. They're really getting you to work hard on your self-esteem and to realize the true value of who you are, what you're here to do. And they can be quite relentless, you know, especially Chiron here. You know, Chiron is really helping you see your true value where you can't see it, you know. And so you may well find that there's lots of opportunities over the last 5 years to get knocked down a little bit, so you pick yourself back up again. And it sounds kind of futile, but he's a wounded healer, but he eventually becomes the mentor. So, you know, I do think that next in 2026, when Chiron finally moves out of here, your self-esteem is going to be really, really quite buoyant. You know, he's really working on you. And the North Node here is really encouraging you to be personally responsible. Realize that you are absolutely responsible for your finances. Realize that you are the creator for yourself. You are very resourceful. All the resources flow easily and effortlessly. You know, the North Node here has been teaching you how to be a greater receiver of things. So you got these two giving you a bit of a hard time, but teaching you some really big lessons. And then you got Mars coming into the 6th, really putting a bomb underneath your butt. It's really helping you get moving in your home and in your life and with your fitness and with your body. And it just feels like from the start of this week that, you know, there's a bit more energy for you at home. There's a bit more energy for you in terms of your work. It's pretty significant. You know, last week when it was in the sign of Cancer, it was just like, oh, I'm feeling a bit creative, but I don't need to really be that accountable. And now it's in the 6th house. It's like, right, all right, it's time. I need to spring clean in November, in autumn, or it's spring, obviously, actually, if you're down under. You know, and then Mercury and Venus up here in your 10th is really actually encouraging in terms of your career, in terms of the people that you work with, in terms of your bosses, in terms of the teachers and mentors that you have around you, in terms of you feeling actually really like a responsible adult. You know, Venus here is giving you confidence, and she's showing you that actually you can be resourceful, you can receive, you've learned a lot about your work, you're actually in a quite good place. To me, it feels like there's a lot of people that are quite happy with you in terms of your work. And then Mercury here is giving you just the right patter, just the right things to say at the right time. It's very, very helpful. In fact, I would say you've got quite a lot of influence here right now in terms of how you're working and how you're seen. This is really useful. So let me just unpack that. Mars is giving you more energy in terms of your work and your diet and your energy levels at home and how organized you are. You know, Mars is really helping you move forwards. You know, there's that fire. And then Mercury is giving you the confidence to talk more and to share more and to be a lot more open and to describe more of a bigger picture. It's kind of interesting, actually, because, you know, Mercury doesn't like the big picture. Mercury is much more like nitty gritty and piecing everything together like a puzzle. Whereas Sagittarius is like all of the colors and the shapes and, you know, everything is kind of a bit vague, but it all has a context. It all has a kind of hero's journey. It's a bit dramatic as well. So here you might be learning how to be a bit more effusive, and to create more of a narrative with a really good story behind it. And Venus here is helping you to be quite endearing to people. So I do think you're coming into quite a dynamic time in this week ahead. And whilst I said, you know, the waxing crescent moon, you know, you should go gently and reflect and not, you know, stomp around, I still think you can be taking steps forward and feeling quite light because of it. To me, the truth of who you are is coming out. The fire energies are warming you up. You know, the water signs can get a bit too damp. The water signs can get a bit cold and frigid. I don't mean that sexually necessarily, but, you know, we can get a bit cold and you know, then we feel a bit lifeless, you know. And And so the fire energy here is warming you up. It's creating light. It's creating warmer movements. It's creating some excitement, and it's inspiring. You know, most people like to look at fire. To me, it's like coming out of the dark and coming into the light. So there is an evolution afoot in this week ahead, in terms of new ideas to get you moving. The next thing I want to mention is this square between Venus and Neptune. And of course, Neptune is one of your ruling planets. The other one is Jupiter down here. But Neptune, you know, Neptune's a tricky one. It's a higher harmonic of love. I mean, these are both love planets. Higher octave represents unconditional love. And spirituality and potential and creativity, and it's very undisciplined, very unboundaried. You don't know where Neptune starts or stops. Not necessarily responsible and reliable. You know, definitely no hard edges there. It's all the veils. But one of the things with Neptune is it's highly idealistic, and here the ideals of who you should be in your body and in terms of your personality, maybe, like your ideals are strong, and it's connected to Venus in a square. It's not comfortable. Venus wants to relate, and yet there's something that's stopping the relatedness because of high ideals and expectations, this unconditional potential, which is hard to land on Earth. It's hard to kind of realize the high ideals that people have, you know. So what you might also recognize in this week ahead is that yes, you're feeling really quite buoyant in terms of your work, and yet it's sometimes hard to enjoy enjoy these feelings because of your higher ideals. You know, maybe you've got high ideals for yourself or expectations. Maybe you're so idealistic that you're almost disconnecting yourself from your joy. You know, you've taken it out of your body and kind of put it in spirit, in the ether. And actually what you really want to do is kind of you might want to ask yourself, how can my ideals be realized within my physical body so that I can feel the joy of it? That would be a really helpful and healing question. I also recognize that these two in a square, they don't get healed by othering or finger pointing. So, you know, your very real self could look at your ideal self and say, oh, you're so idealistic, you turn me off. And then the idealistic side could point fingers back at your very kind of sort of innocent, loving human way and say, oh, you're so trusting, oh my God, you know, and they could just judge each other all day long, and yet it's not really going to heal it. What really heals it is trying to integrate, you know, how can I bring my ideals to life in my actual physical form? How can I balance the gap between my real reality and connections and my desired connections? How can I get the balance point of that? So yeah, it's difficult. And where this exists, I think, is showing this almost distrust of yourself, but also of other people. You might find that you're doing it to other people. You might have high expectations for the people in your work that they're not meeting, and then you feel disconnected. And it's not really any fault of the people that aren't meeting your expectations. They're your expectations, not theirs. So there's something to think about. Yeah, so the last thing then, you know, like this aspect is going on fully until the 17th of November, by which point it will, you know, fade away. And Jupiter is in your fourth, and at the start of the week, like right at the start of the week, is actually in an opposition to Jupiter. So it's interesting. Venus is kind of disturbing both of your ruling planets. So to me, you know, what I really make that mean is that in this week ahead, the abiding energy underneath it all is love. How can you have more love? How can you have more love for yourself? How can you trust yourself in love? How can you love yourself so deeply that, you know, you're not going to doubt yourself? So I would say absence of doubt would be the best way to go about this week. So there's some pointers for the week ahead. I really hope that's helpful to you, Pisces. If I can be of any help, just get in touch. All of my details are below in the description box. And, you know, if you want to invite me to work with you, all you need to do is pick how long you want me to work with you and then click on the appropriate link. So there you go. Have a great week ahead, and I'll catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. So there you go. They're my thoughts for the week starting the 4th to the 10th of November. And honestly, I really don't know, you know, where I'm going to be starting the following week on the 11th of November. It seems that a lot of the world is waiting to hear, like, poised. There's like lots going on. You know, it's almost like people don't want to make hard and fast decisions until they hear about, you know, what happens in America, because you know, I just think it's going to have a knock-on effect for so many other people. And of course, there's lots of wars in the making, and it almost feels like they're on hold. You know, different aspects. It's almost like until America sort of declares something about itself, we won't know what's getting funded and what's not. Just feels like there's a lot of interconnectedness, but also a lot of doubts and a lot of confusion. And to me, that really mirrors the Venus and Neptune square that's going on right now. Again, I just think, you know, the world is going to carry on being its crazy world-like self. And, you know, the astrology coming up is really, really unusual to what we would normally expect. So I just think right now we just need to develop a sort of calm assurance for ourselves and a patience and a trust in ourselves that whatever happens, we're going to be okay. And I think that takes a certain amount of persistence. I think it takes some determination and dedication. And I also think it takes a lot of creativity and a lot of heart and courage. I think the more we can invest in our creative process, and I think the more we come quickly to our senses and to the strengths of who we are, I really feel like our real purpose for being here, like when it's revealed to us and we're all working within our purpose, and I say working, you know, I think work's going to get really changed for a lot of us. I just think when we're all kind of involved in our passions and really realizing ourselves, maybe the world will start to realize. I know I say this every week and it must sound like I'm a broken record, but I really still think as above, so below. You know, we're all on this kind of fractal experience and all interconnected at a quantum level. So that's where I'm going to leave this, folks. Have a great week ahead. I also, there's a feeling of disbelief actually before I say goodbye. It almost, I have this very strong feeling that whatever happens on the 5th, there's still going to be lots of wrangling and indecision and upset. I don't think it matters who wins. I still think the other side is going to say you cheated. And you know, I really see that there's maybe two wings to the same bird, two sides to the same coin at the moment. And the more we can integrate the difference of opinions that we have with other people, the more we can sort of integrate and understand everyone's positions, I think the sooner and the quicker everything would just sort itself out. So yeah, anyway, on that bombshell, have a great week ahead. Have a great weekend if you're watching this before. And I'll catch up with you real soon. Stay in touch, stay positive, and you know, we will get through whatever life throws at us. That's for sure. We've done it so far, and I'm sure we're going to continue to do that. So loads and loads of love to you. Not quite the rousing finish I was hoping for, but it's all I've got at the moment. So lots of love to you. Bye for now.